Chapter 570. The prison pagoda did not attack again. Instead, it entered Yi Xian's body. On the ground, Yi Xian's face was bruised and swollen. His entire body was aching. At this moment, he discovered how terrifying this prison pagoda was. This was definitely stronger than a transcendent sword saint. Moreover, this prison pagoda could even store things. On the ground, Yi Xian lay quietly. At this moment, Tang Qing appeared in front of him. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and said calmly, "If you can win, use your fists. If you can't, use reason. You're really something." Yi Xian, Tang Qing sat not far from Yi Xian and said softly, "I never thought that this pagoda would really recognize you as its master." Yi Xian smiled bitterly, "Do I look like a master to you?" Tang Qing's expression was rather complicated. "Young Master Yi, I'm actually very curious. I'm curious as to why it would recognize you as its master." Yi Xian sat up and said with a smile, "Am I really that unbearable in Miss Tang's eyes?" Tang Qing shook her head. "Young Master Ye's wisdom is unparalleled. You're strong and decisive. A person like you can be called an outstanding person." Yi Xian was stunned, then said, "I've never admired anyone in my life, but I admire Miss Tang Qing." Tang Qing was a little curious. "Admire me? Admire what?" Yi Xian said seriously, "I admire Miss Tang Qing's foresight." Tang Qing was stunned, then laughed. "Young Master Yi, your skin is so thick, it's really rare." Yi Xian chuckled, "Something like skin. There are thousands of people in the world, and they all have tens of thousands of faces. Some people have the same skin, but they lead different lives. Those who laugh on the outside, cry on the inside. Those who laugh on the inside, cry on the outside. This skin is the most unreliable thing in the world. What's the use of it?" Tang Qing smiled. "So young Master Yi chose to be shameless. A shameless person is invincible, right?" Yi Xian laughed, then said, "Miss Tang, you look much more cheerful. What's wrong? Have you thought it through?" Tang Qing said softly, "So what if I can't get over it? Many a time in one's life, one is like a chess piece that can only be manipulated in one way or another." Chapter 576. As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became. "Don't you feel the same way?" In the end, she suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said angrily, "I only know that I have to work hard in everything. I'm going to kill it. And if there are no results after working hard, then I have no regrets." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. The woman in the black dress said angrily. Tang Qing suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, with that, can you let me go?" Yi Xian from afar. Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing, Yi Xian did not dare to be careless and slashed forward. Yi Xian said, "You can leave." A sword beam flashed down. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. The sword beam exploded instantly. Yi Xian flicked his finger, and a wisp of white light entered Tang Qing. Yi Xian had already retreated 1,000 feet away. Tang Qing's restriction was a little grim. Yi Xian's face fell. As soon as he saw the woman in the black dress would definitely be exposed. Yi Xian actually come looking for him, and then he said, was about to attack again when Yi Xian suddenly said, "It was the one who letting you go isn't because I have tender feelings." Yi Xian was stunned, then pointed at the world smiled and asked, "It was the one who called her here?" Seriously, when experts said, "We should stop family has already given up on almost fainted. We've already exchanged one you by my side, so we should stop when it's too late. If I let you go, is perhaps the woman in the black relationship and help me in the future?" Not far away, the black-dressed woman warily took the opportunity to say to the Tang family, "I have to say that you're the most powerful, and you might even look for trouble with the Tang family. The black-dressed person I admire. There's no harm for the woman in the black dress, and it might even be beneficial for me in the future. Are you sucking up to me?" Tang Qing remained silent for a moment, and then she smiled and said, "However, I feel that although you're a little weak, you're an honest person, why are you chasing me? Thank me for what?" The black-dressed woman suddenly chuckled and said, "Thank you for your straightforwardness. The woman in the black dress said, "Master, you've seen other Daos. Even though you're very thick-skinned, I have to say that you're a very good person." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "There's the grand Dao law. You have to obey Dao law. I am very Dao law." I am the woman in the black dress. She turned around and left, but she soon the black-dressed woman looked coldly at Yi Xian. "So gullible, your bone structure. You are at least 20. Soon, Yi Xian's mouth twitched. "I hope that I won't become enemies with Miss Tang Qing Grand Dao law. I am still a child." Upon seeing this Grand Dao law, the woman in the black dress assured that my sword is very fast. "How strong do you expect it to be? And I guarantee that you won't feel any pain." The black-dressed woman took Tang Qing, let it come out and dream Dao law. Yi Xian said.
After
Saying
saying
that,
the
the
woman
woman
in the black
disappeared
dress
not far
asked,
away.
"Do you know how to use
black-dressed
them?"
woman's
Yi
mouth
Xian
curled
looked
into
into
a
Yi
cold
Xian
smile,
nodded.
and
"Do
no
you
one
think
knew
I
what he
was
was
stupid?"
thinking.
"I know.
If I
And
answer,
as soon as
I will be
finished
the Emperor
speaking,
Hound's voice
he
suddenly
openly
sounded.
Yi Xian
Boy,
hesitated.
Very
"Are you
interested
interested
in this
the
girl?
power
You want
of
to
the
go
earth
back
and the surroundings
Yi Xian
rapidly
recollected
gathered
his thoughts
towards
and
him
said
with
with
a
Yi
smile.
Xian, as
Not
if what
long
do you
after,
idiot?
a sword
so
condensed
the Emperor
on his
Hound
side.
said, "Why go
I think
back?"
this
Yi
girl is
Xian
interested in
waved
the
the
sword in his
Xian
hand that the
hesitated.
black
Yi
dress
Xian
woman
shook his head
"Are
and
you from the
smiled.
fifth
Look,
dimension?"
brother Emperor Hound.
The
Have you
black-dressed
lost
woman
woman
shook her head.
Xian.
"No."
The Emperor Hound
That's
said,
it.
"Not
Xian
bad.
was stunned.
My
Yi
strength
Xian
has
nodded.
improved
The
a lot."
black-dressed woman
The
said
black-dressed
calmly,
woman
"When we were
quickly
clumsy,
asked,
became so
"How
we were
strong is
already in
it?"
this stupid pagoda."
The Emperor
Yi
Hound
Xian
said,
suddenly
"Speaking
felt
of
hurt.
her,
It's equivalent
she
to the
suddenly
Tao
became
quickly
angry.
asked, "This stupid
Is there
pagoda.
another way
Yi
to use
Xian
it?"
was stunned.
I told it
"It's
not
the
that strong.
black-dressed woman said
The
indifferently.
Emperor
Insisted
Hound
on
said
fighting.
coldly,
Said it could
"That's
Yi
strong."
Xian smiled.
This
"I'm
idiot
afraid you
was
don't know
almost
when I was
broken
at my
by
peak
them,
and caused us to
Understood.
be
If I was
almost
at my
scattered.
peak,
You're afraid
then
that
let
I'll
me
tell
tell
you
you,
big
after
idiot
I could
mastering
slap
so
these people
stupid
to
I
death
want to
with
the
a
black-dressed
single
woman
slap.
sneered.
Yi
"Are you joking?"
Xian.
Yi Xian laughed.
Do
"Then
you
I'll
know
be
how
relying on
powerful I
brother
am?"
Emperor Hound to protect me
Yi
from now
Xian
on."
said calmly.
"Then
The
what are you
Emperor
afraid
Hound
of?"
said in a low voice.
The black-dressed
"Boy,
woman
even though
sneered,
you've
"You
successfully
still want to
framed the
provoke me?
Qin clan,
Those
do I
powers
look like
aren't
an idiot
idiots.
to you?
You can
Yi
deceive
Xian
them for a
sighed
while,
softly and
but
did
you
not
can't
say
deceive them
anything.
forever." The black-dressed
Yi
woman
Xian
said
nodded.
coldly,
"I know.
"What are you sighing about?" The Emperor Hound asked, "What do you plan to do
Yi
next?"
Xian said,
"Yanjia
Yi
told me
Xian
that if
was
I
about to
encounter the
speak when
Tao
the
law
World
of the
Prison
fifth
Pagoda
floor,
suddenly
I must
appeared in
seek
front of
guidance
him.
from her because the Tao
In the
law
next
of the
moment,
fifth floor
the
is
World
very
Prison
powerful."
Pagoda
trembled slightly
The
as if it was
black-dressed
trying to
woman
express
frowned.
something. "You've
After
seen
a
Ninja.
short
moment, Yi Xian said in a low
nodded.
voice. "Can you speak?"
"Yes."
The
The World
black-dressed
Prison
woman
Pagoda
sized up
trembled
violently
Yi Xian
and
with a
smashed
strange
directly
expression.
towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian asked,
Yi
"What's
Xian's
wrong?"
expression changed,
The
and he
black-dressed
raised his
woman
sword to
suddenly
block.
appeared in front of Yi Xian.
Bang!
Yi
Yi
Xian's
Xian was
expression
instantly
changed
blasted
slightly.
back
300 m. However, he did
The
not
World
attack
Prison
because
Pagoda
this
was about to
black-dressed
attack
woman
again
did not
when
have
Yi
any
Xian
killing
suddenly
intent. Said angrily.
The
The black-dressed
black-dressed
woman
don't
did
go
not
too
have any
far,
killing
or
intent
else
towards him from
the
the
World
beginning
Prison
until
Pagoda
now. Suddenly vanished.
An array
Otherwise,
of black
he would
light
have taken
flashed.
out the soul-subduing sword
Bang!
and risked his life.
Yi Xian was
The
blasted
black-dressed
flying
woman
again.
stared at Yi Xian. On the ground, "Do
Yi
you know why
Xian
I didn't
crawled
kill
up.
you?" At
Yi
this
Xian
moment,
hesitated
the World
before
Prison
saying,
Pagoda appeared
"Because
in
I'm
front of
handsome."
him, and then it jumped up
The
and down in a
black-dressed
very
woman
arrogant
suddenly
manner.
slapped down.
Yi Xian's face twitched.
Bang!
How did I
Yi
offend this
Xian was
malefic
instantly
existence?
blasted
300 m away.
Meanwhile,
The Emperor
as
Hound
soon as he
suddenly
stopped,
said, the
has the
black-dressed
pagoda
woman
spirit
suddenly
woken up?
appeared in front of him.
Yi Xian smiled
"You're able
bitterly.
to control that
I don't
damned
know.
pagoda now, right?"
If the pagoda spirit had
Yi
woken
Xian
up,
did not
it
dare
wouldn't
to be
be so
mischievous
childish,
and immediately
right?
nodded. The World
The
Prison
black-dressed
Pagoda was
woman
acting
looked
quite
Yi Xian in
childish
the
now.
eye.
"I'll
The
teach
Emperor
you how to
Hound
use
said
it in a
in a
low
low
voice. Do you think there's
However,
something wrong
you
with
have
its
to do me a
intelligence
favor."
after it was heavily injured?" Yi Xian asked. Yi Xian thought for a
What
moment
favor?
and then said, "That's
The black-dressed
possible." Woman spoke indifferently.
The Emperor Hound said,
"I
"Let's
want
not
to enter
talk
the
about
pagoda
that
to
for now."
recuperate. It seemed
However,
to want you to do
so
something
long as
just
I
now.
enter,
That damned
you
pagoda might
understand it?
forcefully control me. Yi Xian shook
So,
his head.
you have to
and was
help me
about
not
to
to let
speak
it
when
control me.
Xiaoling suddenly appeared
Yi
in front of
Xian
him.
fell
"I
silent.
can understand it." He had never
Yi
expected
Xian was
that the
slightly
black-dressed
startled.
woman
You can
actually had
understand
such
it?
an intention. Xiaoling
No wonder
nodded.
she had not
"It wants
aroused
you to
any
find
killing
something.
intent
Towards him from the beginning
Yi
until
Xian
now.
asked,
"What is it looking
Yi
for?"
Xian retracted his thoughts
Xiaoling
and said,
I'm
"I'm
afraid
afraid
I
I
can't
can't
do anything about it if it wants
and
to
then she
forcefully
mumbled
control
something.
you." And the World Prison
Even
Pagoda
though he was
suddenly
the
jumped
pagoda
up and
master,
down. The
Yi
pagoda
Xian's
paid no
expression
attention to him
froze.
most of
Brother
the time.
Emperor Hound,
"Can you understand what they're
black-dressed
saying?"
woman
spoke indifferently.
The Emperor Hound said,
"Don't worry.
You think too highly of me.
So long as you agree to stand
the world
on
of
my
the big
side,
shots is
then it
not
won't be able
something
to
that
do
trash
anything
like
to
me
me,
can understand.
nor will it be able to do anything to
Yi
you."
Xian,
At this time,
Xian
Xiaoling
hesitated for a moment
looked at
and
Yi
said,
Xian. "Is there a
"It
way
wants
to
you to
control
find
it?"
that Tao."
The black-dressed
Tao,
woman
Yi
laughed
Xian
coldly.
said,
"Tao law?
"What do you think?"
Xiaoling
Yi Xian
quickly
thought
nodded
for a moment and
yes,
said,
that
"How
Tao
about
law?
this?"
I'll
Yi
make it
Xian
come
asked,
out, and
"It
we can
wants to
discuss
find Dao law? Otherwise,
Xiaoling
it's very likely
nodded
that
her little
things will
head.
become very
It said
tense.
that you're too lazy to even look
He
for
was
Dao
quite
law.
worried as well.
He was
At this
worried
point,
about the pagoda.
She glanced at Yi Xian,
Because
and
if
did
he
not
joined
speak.
forces with the black-dressed woman,
Yi Xian
then the
asked,
pagoda would
"What is it?"
definitely be in a very bad mood.
Xiaoling hesitated.
He didn't
and
want
then
internal
said,
strife
"It
to
said
occur
that you're an
within his
idiot.
body every single day.
You didn't even chase away the
The
sixth
black-dressed
floor.
woman remained expressionless.
You're really too stupid.
Up to you."
Yi Xian's
Yi
face
Xian
darkened.
nodded.
You were the one
and
who
then
said
he immersed
that.
his consciousness into
Little
his body,
Ling,
or blinked her eyes.
Xiao Ta,
If you
it
really
said
don't come
so.
out, then there's no way
At
to
the
discuss
side,
it.
the prison pagoda
Don't
trembled,
worry,
as
she
if
won't harm
expressing
you
something.
while I'm here.
Xiao
The
Ling
three of us
said
can't
again,
even defeat
it
a
said
single
that I'm
one
right.
of us.
You're an idiot.
You're a big idiot.
There was no movement from
At
the
this
pagoda.
point, she seemed to realize
Yi Xian's
something,
face
and
sank.
quickly shut up. Is she really that
Yi
afraid
Xian,
of death?
Xiaoling,
Blinked.
right at this
Did I
moment.
say something
Xiao
wrong?
Ling,
Suddenly
Yi
appeared in
Xian
front of
shook
Yi
his head.
Xian.
No, you're very
She was holding a
outstanding.
Xiao Ta in her arms.
Really?
It was the
Xiao
pagoda.
Ling, giggled,
Xiao
and then
Ling
pointed to the
blinked.
right. It said that there are
It
Tao
asked me to
laws
bring
over
it
there,
out,
and it wants you to go.
Yi Xian was speechless.
Yi Xian looked to the right,
The
and
black-dressed
after a moment
woman
glanced
glanced
at the pagoda
He
with a
nodded.
rather
"Let's
complicated
go."
expression. With that,
Yi
he
Xian
sent Xiao
asked,
Ling,
"What's wrong?"
to the prison pagoda.
The
and then
black-dressed
disappeared
woman said
with the prison
softly,
pagoda.
"It's very heavily injured,
Find Tao
and its
laws.
intelligence has been damaged.
To unleash the power of the prison
Otherwise,
pagoda,
with its temper,
the best way
you would
was
have
to
been
find Tao
reincarnated a
laws.
long time ago."
Not only could Tao
Yi
laws
Xian
repair
was
the
slightly
prison pagoda,
curious.
but they could also
Its
increase
temper
his
is
strength.
bad.
Given the current
black-dressed woman
situation,
said indifferently,
he needed to increase
"It's so
his
bad
strength
that
as
you
soon
can't
as
imagine
possible.
it.
It was once in a star
once the
field,
Order
and it was
Alliance
affected
and
by
Tang
a
Clan
battle
came
between
back
two
to their
people.
senses.
It would be impossible for him
it
to
destroyed
fight
them
that
with his
entire
current
star
strength.
field. Under the
Yi
guidance of
Xian
the
was
prison pagoda,
speechless.
Yi Xian disappeared
black-dressed
into the
woman
boundless
looked at the
horizon.
pagoda.
Myriad
I'll be
Mountain
recuperating
City. Inside the pagoda.
At this
and I'll
time,
also help
Myriad
you stabilize
Mountain
it.
City was a mess.
However, you can't
Dozens of
control
Tao
me,
realm
or I'll
experts have
kill
fought
you.
here.
How could this
The
place
current you
withstand
can't
it?
beat me.
And on the
You
battlefield,
have to understand
the
this.
Order Alliance
Understand?
and Tang Clan had a tacit
pagoda
understanding
trembled
as
as
if
if
it
it
was
was
responding
responding
to
to
something. Their target
Xiao
was the
Ling
Qin family.
said.
It said that it can
The
beat you in
Qin
the future.
family
only had Qin Shao,
Yi Xian
Qin
was
Ming,
speechless.
and Qin
The
Feng.
black-dressed
woman shook her head.
The rest of them had all
It's so
perished.
stupid that it's cute.
As for Qin Ming and
After
Qin
saying
Feng,
that,
they
she
didn't
directly
fight
entered
amongst
the pagoda.
themselves.
Inside
they
the
did,
pagoda, then
the
everyone would
black-dressed
die.
woman
looked around. Qin Shao glared
Finally,
at Lin Mu.
she
Brother
looked at the
Lin,
top of the
do you
pagoda.
really have to be so ruthless?
When she saw the two swords
Lin
at the top
Mu
of
said
the pagoda,
indifferently. She said
ruthless?
indifferently, Pagoda Master,
Your Qin family
when are you going to
acts
take
one
these
way
two
in front of
swords
my
out?
Tang Clan and another
They're
way
just a
behind my
waste of
back.
space here. Let me tell
Yi
you,
Xian
if your
was
Qin
speechless.
family doesn't hand over that treasure
Inside
today,
the pagoda,
let alone
Xiao
you,
Linger
your
appeared in
entire
front of the
Qin
black-dressed
family will
woman.
perish. Xiao
Qin
Linger
Shao
looked at the
black-dressed
Qin Ming
woman.
and Qin Ming. Do
The
the two of
first,
you really want my
second,
Qin family
third,
to be buried
fourth,
with you?
and fifth floors are
Qin
all
Feng
mine.
looked at Qin Ming.
In
Even
addition,
if you don't care
the
about
sixth,
yourself,
seventh,
do you not care
eighth,
about your
and ninth
descendants?
floors are all mine.
Qin Ming fell silent.
If you don't agree,
After a
I'll-
moment, he looked at Lin
The
Mu and the
black-dressed
others,
woman was
saying
expressionless.
softly, when that treasure was in
What?
the secret room, I
Are you
wanted
going
to
to hit
subdue
me?
it. However,
Xiao Linger
it
thought for a
suddenly
moment.
disappeared. Then,
If I'm
she
not
said,
wrong,
violence
it has
can't
returned to
solve
Yi
problems.
Xian's side.
I'm trying
Lin
to
Mu
reason
shook
with
his
you.
head and smiled.
To be
I'm
honest,
trying to communicate
I also
with you.
feel a bit sorry for Yi
You'll be
Xian.
reasonable, right?
It hasn't been easy for him to
black-dressed
live
woman
until
thought
now.
for a moment.
In this kind of
Then,
situation,
she said,
you all
can
still
plant
want
them,
to frame him.
but can I eat them?
Doesn't your conscience
Xiao
hurt?
Linger hurriedly nodded.
Qin Shao, you can eat them.
P.S.
A
You
reader
can eat
said that
whatever
today
you want.
is his birthday and asked if
But
I
you
could
can't
add
eat
more.
the trees.
Of course I
If
can.
you eat the trees,
they won't
I wish
grow
you a
back.
happy birthday.
The black-dressed
Thank you
woman
very
nodded.
much
for reading my book.
All right.
And thank you even more for supporting
Xiao
the
Linger
original.
nodded.
I will
I'm
write
Xiao
better
Linger.
stories, become more
What's your
handsome,
name?
and make you all like
The
them even
black-dressed
more.
woman thought for a moment.
Then, she said,
Chapter
"Ah,
571.
As she
The
spoke,
expressions of
she
Qin
suddenly
Shao
gazed
and the
at the
others
emperor
instantly
dog
became
that was lying on the
extremely
ground not
unsightly
too
when they
far
heard
away.
Lin Mu.
She walked
Obviously,
over to the emperor
Lin Mu
dog and the others didn't believe
The
Qin
emperor
Ming at
dog
all.
opened its eyes,
But
and
there
there
was
was
a trace
sense.
of vigilance in them. After all,
who would
you
believe
sized
him?
up the emperor dog and
Meanwhile,
said, Pagoda
Lin Mu's
Master,
gaze
can
gradually
this be
turned
eaten?
icy cold.
Qin Shao, I don't have the time to waste with you.
The emperor dog was speechless.
Just tell me, hand it over or
Yi
not.
Xian's face darkened.
Qin Shao had a ferocious
do
expression
anything
on his
rash.
face. Hand it over.
You said seriously.
I don't have anything.
Pagoda Master.
So what do you want me to
Its
hand
bloodline
over?
isn't bad.
When he spoke up to
If
this
you eat
point,
it,
then
he
your
gazed at
strength
Qin
will
Ming.
definitely improve.
Do you really want to
greatly.
bury your entire clan
Yi
with you?
Xian said seriously.
Qin Ming
Miss
spoke
Yu,
solemnly.
It's my
That
friend.
treasure really did flee by
You
itself,
shrugged.
and it's definitely in Yi
Do
Xian's
whatever you
hands
want.
now.
Qin
If
Shao
it's not
roared
your friend in the
furiously.
future,
Do you even
then I'll
believe
eat it
that?
if you don't.
Do you?
The emperor dog was
Qin Ming
terrified when
remained
it heard
silent.
that. He knew
you
that he
paid
couldn't
no
explain
attention to the
himself.
emperor dog, and she
At
just
this
walked
moment,
upstairs.
he realized how severe
Xiao
the
Linger
situation
floated
was.
over to the emperor dog and
It wasn't
sized
just
it
a
up.
matter of his own.
She
It
was
was
related
slightly
to the fate of the
curious.
entire Qin clan.
Are you really delicious?
It was absolutely
Can I have a
impossible for the
taste?
Qin clan to resist the
emperor
joint
dog
forces
was
of the Tang
speechless.
clan and Order Alliance.
You arrived at the fifth
Moreover,
floor.
the Order Alliance
At this
and Tang
moment,
clan
the
would
fifth floor
absolutely
had
not
been
allow
filled
him
with
to
spirit
escape.
trees by Xiao Linger.
He had no way out because
you
the
spoke
Qin clan
softly,
wouldn't protect
as the
him.
person on the fifth floor
Moreover,
left.
the Qin clan wouldn't
Yi
even
Xian
be able to
replied,
protect
"He's been
themselves.
killed."
He had no way
Yu's
out.
brows knit together slightly.
It was a hopeless situation.
He's so strong that you probably won't be able to kill him.
When he thought up to this point.
Yi Xian
said, I didn't kill him.
Greed is the original sin.
It was the sword master at the top of the pagoda. There was only a single reason why he'd fallen into such a situation. Greed. The sword master isn't dead. Arose, he would be doomed eternally. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, he truly realized that he'd been tricked by Yi Xian, who appeared. Yi Xian had succeeded in using his greed to divert the attention of the Order Alliance and Tang clan. A long time passed before she said, Are they
Qin
familiar
Ming's
with you?
expression gradually turned
Yi
icy
Xian
cold
thought
when he
for a
thought up
moment
to
and
this point,
said,
and he
quite
gazed
familiar.
at Lin Mu and the others.
You
I was the
fell
last
silent.
person to come into contact with
Yi
that
Xian
treasure,
asked,
and it
"What
really
is
has
it?"
fallen into Yi Xian's hands.
You spoke softly.
Lin
It's
Mu
not as
was about
simple
to
as I
speak when
thought.
Qin Ming's body suddenly
Forget it.
started burning.
I don't care.
He was combusting.
I'm going to rest.
Everyone in the surroundings was
Yi
stunned
Xian
when they
hurriedly
witnessed
said,
this scene.
"How do I use that Dao law?"
Even Qin Shao and the others
you
were
replied.
stunned. You have to wake it up and restore its
Suicide.
consciousness, and then
Qin Ming
establish
had
a
actually
spiritual
chosen
connection with
suicide.
it. After that,
At this
you'll
moment,
fuse with
Lin
it.
Mu
and the black-robed
that
old
time,
man from the
you'll be
Order
the Grand
Alliance
Dao
frowned
Law.
tightly. So long
This
as you
Qin
step
Ming
on the
wanted
ground,
to use
you'll
his
be able
death
to
to
obtain
prove
that
the
the
energy
treasure
of the
wasn't in
earth.
his hands. If you're slightly
On the
more
battlefield,
formidable,
the
you'll even
burning
be able
Qin
to
Ming
obtain
had a
the energy
crazed
of
look
the
on
earth's
his face.
veins. Yi Xian. If you're even more formidable, you'll even
What
be
a
able
good
to
Yi
obtain
Xian.
the energy of the earth spirit.
You
caused the old man to die.
At that time,
the old man
you'll be
will
the
not let
master
you
of the
off
earth.
easily. Do you know
As he
how
spoke,
formidable that
he
is?
looked
at Lin Mook and the others. To put it simply, you can make
Order
the entire
Alliance,
world
Tang
tremble
Clan.
with just a stomp
This
of
Yi
your foot.
Xian
is not only talented,
You're using
but
it
his
to condense
intelligence
it
is
into a
also
sword now,
outstanding, which is simply a foolish
If you don't
act.
take advantage of this opportunity
idiot
to
taught you
eliminate
this?
him before he fully matures,
Yi Xian
then it won't be
replied,
long
the
before
sword
you can
master
do
at the
anything
top
to
of the
him.
pagoda taught me that. As soon as he finished
pagoda
speaking,
of prison
his body
suddenly
was
fell
completely
silent.
engulfed in flames.
A
And
short
it didn't
while
take
later,
long for him to
you
turn
suddenly
into
said,
ashes. What did I say just now?
The surroundings were extremely
Why don't I
silent.
remember anything? Qin Shao
Yi
and
Xian
Qin
was
Feng
speechless.
remained silent.
P.S.
The two of them
Many
didn't
readers have
expect Qin
birthdays
Ming
today.
to suddenly do this. I've always thought that I was
Although
very
the three
thick-skinned,
people in front of
but
them
I
were
never
dead,
imagined that
they
there
couldn't
would always
commit
be someone
suicide.
stronger. The reason why Qin Ming had committed suicide was obviously because he didn't want Yi
Chapter
Xian's plan to
577.
succeed. At the
Yi
very
Xian
least,
shook his
he
head
wanted
and
to shift
smiled
the
when he
attention
heard
of the
Ah Yu's
Tang Clan
words.
and the Order Alliance
It
to Yi
seemed that
Xian.
the irascible Ah Yu was
Qin
very
Shao
fearful
looked
of
at
the
Lin
owner
Mook
of the
not
three
far away.
swords at the top
Brother
of the
Lin
pagoda.
Mook, if my Qin
But
clan
this was
really
normal.
had that treasure, they would
After
definitely
all,
save
the
us at all
pagoda and the
costs.
Dao
laws had become like
Perhaps
this because of
we
the
would
three of
directly
them.
hand it over to protect
Yi
ourselves.
Xian collected his thoughts and asked,
But now,
Miss
no
Ah
one
Yu,
from my Qin
how do we
clan
awaken
has
the
come
Dao
to
laws?
rescue us?
On the fifth
This is
floor,
enough to prove
you
that the
said,
treasure isn't
find
in
a
our
place
hands.
with the power of the earth veins.
You've all
and
interacted
activate
with
with
that
the power
Yi
of the
Xian
earth
before.
veins. You know
Yi
better than me
Xian
how
asked,
treacherous
is the
he
power
is.
of the earth different from the
power
power
of the earth veins?
Didn't
Didn't the sword sect fall into
Ah
his
Yu
trap
said
in the same
angrily.
way? Aren't you just talking
Yi
nonsense?
Xian.
The power
Lin
of the
Mook
earth
and the
is the
rest
power
fell
of the
silent.
earth, and the power of
Yi
the earth
Xian.
veins is the power of the
They
earth
naturally
veins.
knew how treacherous he was.
For example, men and
This
women
fellow
both
didn't
human,
seem like a
but
swordsman
are you the
at
same
all.
as women? This was
Are you
because
the
he was
same?
too shameless,
Yi
using all
Xian
sorts
was
of
speechless.
tricks.
Ah
Moreover,
Yu said
he
again,
was
"Go
extremely
east.
shameless.
Keep going."
This kind
There
of
is the
person
power
was a
of the
disgrace
earth
to the
veins there.
swordsman.
Yi
And this
Xian
kind of
nodded.
person was the most troublesome.
He glanced at the surroundings
because he
and
was
then
capable
vanished.
of doing many shameless
Before
things.
long,
He arrived
at
at the
this
depths
time,
of the mystic
Wuliao
sea. Suddenly transmitted his
Ah
voice.
Yu told him to keep
regardless
going,
of whether the
so he
treasure
didn't
is
stop
in Yi
and sped
Xian's
up.
hands or not.
We
It didn't
cannot
take
let
long
these
for
three
him
go.
to completely vanish above
Hearing
the
this,
boundless sea. Lin Mook's eyes narrowed. Northern
Kill.
Wasteland World, Sky
Kill.
Ascension City. The Qin clan
Standing in
was a
Sky
vassal of the Tang
Ascension
clan,
City,
and
one
their
could pluck
actions this
stars
time
with
was
their
undoubtedly
tentacles.
a betrayal. The entire
Under
Sky
such
Ascension City was
circumstances,
extremely
if the
tall,
Tang clan
as
did
if
not
it stood
kill
in
the
the starting
starting
to warn the
sky,
monkey. Wouldn't the other
this was the
vassal
most
forces have
mysterious
thoughts
place
of
in the
rebelling?
northern
wasteland world?
Furthermore,
and it was also
the words
the
of the
headquarters
Qin
of the Order
clan
Alliance
could not be
trusted completely.
Over
40 people stood
Whether
in the
the
Sky
treasure was
Ascension
on them or
Palace,
not,
and
they
the
would know
weakest
once
among
they
them
killed
was a
them.
Dao realm expert. As Lin Mook's
The
voice
palace
fell,
was very
the
quiet,
Tang clan
as if
cavalry
they were
charged
waiting for
towards
someone.
Lin Shao and Yuelao.
About
15 minutes later,
seeing
a
Lin
middle-aged
Mook and the
man
rest
appeared
attack,
at the entrance
Lin
of the
Zhao's
palace.
expression turned savage.
The middle-aged
"Since you won't
man
let us
wore a
live,
tight white
then
robe,
we'll fight to the
and his
death."
long hair draped over his shoulders.
As soon as he
finished speaking, his
he
brows
charged
were filled
toward
with
the
a group of
heroic
Tang
spirit,
clan
and
cavalrymen,
he held
half a book in his hand.
On
the other side, the
the
black-robed
Star-Lord.
old man and the rest did
This
not make a
person
move.
was the
Star Lord of the Order
Alliance.
Beside the black-robed old man,
Everyone
an
present
expert bowed
asked
in
solemnly,
unison when they
"Should
saw
we
the
make a
Star
move?"
Lord. The
The
black-robed
Star-Lord
old man
walked
to
to
the
shook his
stone
head,
steps of the
watched the
palace,
show,
sat down, and
Suddenly,
said softly,
a shrill
"Let's
cry
talk about
resounded,
Yi Xian."
and
by the time the black-robed
that
old
moment,
man and the rest
Protector
looked over,
Qin Tian
Qin
walked
Feng's
out.
head had already flown into
Yi
the air.
Qian comes from a small
crushed.
He
The
came into
black-robed
contact
old
with the
man's
sword Dao
expression
at
was
the age of
extremely
18
solemn
when he saw
saw
the
the
strength
sword
of the
immortal.
Nine Tang clan cavalrymen.
This person is extremely talented in the way of the sword,
cavalrymen
and
were
the person
truly
behind
strong.
him is even more unfathomable.
Right at this moment, Qin
However,
Shao,
I don't
who was
know
nearby,
who exactly it
was
is.
suddenly sent flying.
An old man suddenly asked.
At this
Even
moment,
we can't find
his
anything?
left arm was gone. Protector Qin
Moreover,
Tian nodded.
only a
No
single
information
Tang
at
clan
all.
cavalryman had attacked.
The old man frowned.
Both of them had been fighting
Is it from the God
one-on-one.
Nation? However,
Divine
Qin
Kingdom.
Shao had been completely
The
crushed.
expressions of everyone here instantly
Not too
changed
far away
when they heard this.
Qin Shao raised his head
Although
and took
this
a look.
faction had not appeared for
In
a
the
long
distant
time,
void,
as long
there
as
was an
one
old
was a
man
member of the
looking
Order
down from
Alliance,
above.
they would never forget
This person was the
faction.
current patriarch of the Qin clan, Qin Zhong.
The body of Gu Tatian,
He had arrived
the
a
most
long time
outstanding
ago,
Star Lord
but
of the
he did not
Lawful
make
Order
a move.
Alliance, was still hanging
just
in the
watched
God burial
silently.
plain.
Qin
At this
Shao
moment,
stared
the
fixedly
Star
at
Lord
Qin
suddenly
Zhong.
said,
I do not
"It's
resent
not
the
them."
clan.
Everyone
Please
looked at the
protect my
Star
family,
Lord, and the latter
patriarch.
looked at a skinny old man
As soon
with
as
his
he
eyes
finished
closed.
speaking,
He looked at the
in
Tang
the
clan
hall,
cavalryman,
only this skinny
and in the
old
next
man
moment,
was sitting.
his abdomen swelled
Master
up.
Ku.
In the blink of
This
an eye,
person was the
a
military
destructive force
advisor of the
erupted
Order
from within him.
Alliance. Rumble.
His position in the Order Alliance
space
was only
in an
second
area
to the
of
Star
several
Lord and
thousand
two
meters
other
violently
special
trembled and
existences.
cracked apart.
Seeing the Star
Not far
Lord looking
away,
at him,
the
Master
Tang clan
Ku
knight
opened
held
his
his saber
eyes
with
and
both
said
hands
softly,
and leaned his
the
body
Order
forward,
Alliance isn't
using
the only
his
ones
saber
who want
as
that
a shield.
supreme treasure.
Just like
The
that,
demon race,
he managed to
Tang
completely
clan,
block
and
the
some
power
other
of the
old monsters
explosion.
also want it. However, he
However,
was also forced
everyone
back
knows
nearly
that whoever
100
touches
Zhang.
Yi Xian will be the first
A short
to suffer.
moment later, the surroundings
Because the
returned to
supreme
calm.
treasure's power is limited
Both
in Yi
Qin
Xian's
Shao
hands,
and Qin
and Yi
Feng had
Xian can't
perished.
change anything.
But neither of them
Please
had that
continue to the
precious
next
treasure on
page.
them. But if
Lin
it
Mu
falls
raised
into the
his
hands
hand
of the
and saw
major
that Qin
forces,
Zhong had
it'll be
appeared out of
completely
nowhere.
different. Qin
Therefore,
Zhong glanced
if
at
we
Lin
want
Mu.
to obtain
Is
that
that supreme
enough?
treasure, we must
Lin
first
Mu
deal with the
sneered,
Tang clan
patriarch
and the
Qin.
demon race.
Do you think this
not
matter
Yi
is
Xian.
over?
Of
Qin
course,
Zhong
we
shook his
can't
head.
underestimate
Whether
the
or not
southern
it's over is
martial
not up to
masters
you.
either. Let me
Similarly,
remind you one last
they
time.
must
first deal with us if they
Yi
want to
Xian
obtain
gave
that
up that
supreme
precious
treasure of his own accord
The
in
Star
order to
Lord
divert your
nodded
attention to
slightly.
my Qin family.
Continue.
Do you know what he's doing
Master
right now?
Ku stood up.
Do you think he'll be
It's
idle?
precisely because of the concerns
for
I
Yi
mentioned that
Xian,
Yi Xian
he will
is still
definitely
able to
take
do as he
revenge for the
pleases.
smallest grievance. During this period of
Once
time,
he becomes an
the old man
extraordinary
has
sword
researched
saint,
Yi Xian.
coupled with his assassination
Not only
techniques,
did Yi Xian
I really
rely
don't
on
know
his
if your
talent
Tang
and
clan
strength,
cavalryman
but he
will be
also
enough to
relied
kill.
on his intelligence. Lin Mu fell
Of
silent.
course,
It's mostly because
Yi
of his
Xian.
background. The Tang
Yi
clan
Xian
had
a
never
person or
dared
a
to look
force?
down on this person.
Or something else?
Right now,
Yi
we don't
Xian
know
was
anything
only a
about
great
it.
sword immortal.
At this moment,
But once
he
he
became
became
a
a
sword
suddenly
saint.
said,
He might
Master
even
Ku,
become an
what do you
extraordinary
think our
sword
Order
saint
Alliance
should do now? Even transcendent
Master
sword
Ku
saint
said with a smile.
At
We
that
have
time,
two options
he would
now.
definitely be very terrifying.
First, we can learn from the Tangs
At this time,
and wait and see.
a voice sounded out from the side.
We will attack
Patriarch
whoever
Qin
attacks
Zhong.
first.
Aren't you trying to divert
Second,
the attention of my
we can
Tang
attack
clan
first
and
and
Order
use all of our
Alliance?
strength to kill Yi Xian
Lin Mu
in one
turned
hit.
and looked. However,
When he
we'll
saw who
definitely
it
be
was,
stopped by
he
the
was
Tang
stunned.
clan and the demon race.
Tang Qing.
An old man
The young miss
suddenly
of the
asked,
Tang family.
will they dare to fight us? Tang Qing walked in
Master
front of Qin
Ku
Zhong
replied
and
softly,
smiled. They
Patriarch
definitely
Qin
will.
Zhong.
What we are
Because
discussing
once
right
the
now
supreme
is not
treasure
that precious
falls into
treasure,
our
nor
hands,
is it Yi
they can
Xian,
only bow
but your
down to
Qin
us in the
family.
future.
What was
Just
the
like
agreement
us,
between your
we'll
Qin
stop them at
family
all
and my
costs
Tang
if they
clan and
try
try
to
to
snatch
snatch it from us? Has your Qin
At
family
this
forgotten
moment,
your own
Guardian
status?
Qin Tian suddenly
Qin
said,
Zhong
there's a
looked at
third
Tang
choice.
Qing, not speaking.
The third choice.
Tang Qing continued.
Everyone
Your
looked
Qin
at Qin
family's
Tian.
current actions are betrayal. The latter said, this person has a
Do you
fatal
think my
weakness,
Tang clan
and
will
that's
let your
his younger
Qin family
sister
off?
If we can
Qin
control
Zhong
his younger
smiled.
sister,
Then what do you
this
think we
person
should
will be
do?
a sword of our Order Alliance.
Tang Qing smiled faintly.
He can only slash wherever
She
we
opened
want
her
him to
palm
slash,
and a
beam of white light suddenly
Master
flew
Ku
out.
smiled.
Soon,
That's
a
true.
figure appeared in front of her. However, we'll have to
Seeing
attack
this
the Wu
figure,
Yuan sword
all the
sect
Tang
if we want to
clan
control
cavalry
his
knelt
younger
on
sister.
one knee.
Lin Mu and old Yuelao did
Although
the
they
same.
no longer have their ancestors
Because this
clone,
figure was the
will
current
still suffer
patriarch
heavy
of the Tang
losses
clan,
if they die
Tang
together.
Yen.
Tang
Tian
Qing
smiled
bowed slightly
if
to
you
the
don't want to
figure.
sacrifice
Tang
anything
Qing
to
greets
obtain that
patriarch.
treasure, that's impossible,
Tang Yen
isn't
said,
it? What is it? Master Ku
Tang
shook his
Qing
head.
said,
The Qin family
Guardian
has betrayed
Qin
us.
Tian,
You've overlooked
Tang
something.
Qing suggests that we
How do you
immediately
know that
eradicate
the Tang
the
clan
Qin
and the
family
demon
to
race
rid
won't
ourselves
attack
of
us
this
when we
disaster?
attack the Shenwu city? Not far away.
What if the mantis
Qin
stalks
Zhong
the
glanced
cicada,
at Tang Qing
unaware
but
of the
did not
Oriole
speak.
behind it?
Tang
Qin
Yen
Tian
asked,
replied,
how did you escape?
This will depend on the determination
Tang
of my
Qing's
alliance.
expression was calm. He let me
If
go.
we fight,
We'll have to end
Tang
it as
Yen
soon as
asked,
possible.
Why?
As he
Tang
spoke,
Qing said,
he looked at everyone.
He felt that the family had abandoned
Yi
me
Xian
and that
is
I
good
was
at
no
hiding.
longer of any use in his hands.
Unless the Star Lord takes
He let
action
me go
personally,
because I have a
we
grudge
won't be able
against
to
the
find
family.
him. Even
This
if we
is
find
beneficial
him,
to him.
we won't be able to kill him.
Tang Yen
especially
asked
when the
again,
Tang
what do you
clan
think?
and the others are secretly
Tang
stopping
Qing
us.
said,
I have a grudge
if we we control his younger sister, he'll come to us. Tang Yan looked at Tang Qing and waited for her to continue. His head. Tang Qing clenched her fist. Is right. Of course, I blame myself even more. There's a problem. It was my own stupidity and carelessness that allowed me to be captured by Yi Xian. When she spoke up to hear, she raised her head to look at Tang Yan. From this moment onward, I want the family to never abandon me in his life. I want to prove to the family that abandoning me has lost the greatest mistake of the family. We can take this opportunity to devour it. The surroundings were extremely silent. If we devour the Shenwu city, not far away, I'm sure I don't need to explain. The black-robed old man glanced at Tang Qing and said softly, "This girl. Everyone in the hall was tempted. Tang Yen suddenly said, "The sword from this moment on in the Shenwu city had been passed down to the deputy cavalry commander of the Tang clan. So there must be a lot of treasures. She will be able to freely mobilize. There was a divine pulse in the Shenwu city, 2 Dao realm experts, a 9 dragon jade pendant, and 1 million divine everyone was tempted by. She will also be able to freely enter Star Lord who had been silent divine skill pavilion. Heaven's abode, this chapter is not over, and train soldiers. Please flip the page." Hearing Tang Yen, the 9 Tang clan cavalry suddenly turned around and knelt to Tang taking down the Shenwu city. Commander Qin. Qin Tian nodded. At this moment, Lin Mu and old Yuelao's expressions changed. "We need support." Tang Qin's current treatment was something that only the young masters of the Tang clan could enjoy, and 30 Dao realm. Moreover, those young masters were fighting for the position of heir. Qin Tian nodded. This meant that the patriarch wanted Tang Qin to fight for the position to crush the sword sect, and it also meant that Tang Qin had truly entered the core circle of power in the Tang clan. "I'll leave this to you." Lin Mu and old Master hurriedly bowed to Tang Qin as well. "Pay attention to the Tang clan and the demon race, and the title of deputy cavalry commander of the Tang clan was much greater than that of the Tang clan. Master because it was real power. As for the eldest youngness of the Tang clan, don't underestimate him. It was just an empty title." Qin Tian nodded. Tang Qin stood up and bowed slightly with the Tang clan and the demon race has not let down the patriarch's expectations. Master Ku nodded and left with everyone. Tang Yen said, "Return to the Qin clan and discuss it with your 9th brother and the filling Sky Sea region. You can decide whether to kill them or keep them for about 2 hours." Yi Xian arrived at a small island. "Do your best to search for Yi Xian's whereabouts." The island was huge, and it was the largest island that cannot be allowed to live. Tang Qin stood on the ground, and the great Dao Law suddenly condensed. He slowly relaxed his hands. Yi Xian said, expression was Miss calm, and no one knew what he was thinking. Inside the prison pagoda, Chapter 572 said, "Use the great Dao Law to sense the surrounding earth force." Tang Qin glanced at the earth force to sense the power of the earth vein in the depths. The latter smiled and said, "Absorb the power of the earth vein. You're really good." After that, Tang Qin did not respond to Qin Zhong. Upon hearing that, she turned to look at Yuelao and did as he was told. Return to the clan. With the help of the earth force, the group of people surrounding earth force. After Tang Qin and the others power left, of the earth, Qin Zhong looked at the black-robed old man. He hurriedly followed the earth force to sense the earth vein. "Would you like to talk?" You mentioned. The black-robed old man shook his head. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "There's nothing to discuss. Miss Yu, I don't feel it." With that, he turned around and left. Said, then cried. Normally, he would want to talk, was speechless. But now, he didn't want to. You said, "Do you think it's that simple?" The Qin clan's betrayal of the Tang clan was extremely shameless. The earth vein is hidden in the depths. If the Qin clan could betray the Tang clan, if you don't use your concentration, then they could also betray the Order Alliance. Then how would you be able to sense it? Secondly, the Qin clan was obviously trying to get the Order Alliance to take over the Qin clan. And a short moment passed before he started to slowly sense the Alliance accepted the Qin clan. The Tang clan would definitely take revenge after a long time for the sake of their reputation. Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he utilized the dragon wasn't worth it. As soon as he utilized the dragon's soul, his spiritual energy and soul, because it was highly possible that the Tang clan would not let the Qin clan around an hour passed before Yi Xian's expression wasn't as strong as the Tang clan, because he sensed a trace of faint energy. If the two clans could fight to the death, it was extremely similar to the energy of the earth vein, but it was even pure. If not, it didn't matter. The energy of the earth vein. In any case, the Order Alliance wouldn't lose that it was definitely the energy of the earth vein. His current mission was to find Yi Xian. He continued searching, and it didn't take long for him to be dragged down by the energy of the earth vein. After the black-robed old man and the others well and very difficult to remain expressionless. Meanwhile, no one knew what he was thinking. Activate the great Dao Law and absorb it. Just as he was about to leave, Yi Xian hurriedly did as he was told not too far away from him. In next to no time, the figure was like a shadow, the energy of the earth vein started to converge towards him, while the color of the great Dao Law narrowed his eyes, brows grew darker and darker after it absorbed the energy of the earth vein. Said, "Now it seems around that the Qin family is in a very bad situation." Yi Xian's brows suddenly trembled, stared straight at the mysterious man, and then a strand of dazzling golden light erupted from it. The mysterious man said indifferently, suddenly raised his head, and a strand of formidable energy shot into the sky from within him. "You?" At this moment, as his voice he really felt like he was the master of the world, space in front of him felt like he could defy the heavens. An instant later, an astral image suddenly appeared in front of him. Qin Zhong's expression changed slightly as he threw out a punch. Chapter 578. Boom. Power. Qin Zhong retreated rapidly, at this moment, and Yi Xian felt like his body was filled with boundless power. At this moment, made him feel like Qin Zhong's expression turned solemn. Suddenly, the mysterious man's brows started to tremble violently. "Do you believe me now?" Yi Xian's expression glared at the mysterious man. "What's going on?"
Apart from the
you
Tang
said
clan and the
it's
Demon
about to wake
clan,
up.
no one can stop the
Yi
Tang
Xian
clan.
spoke solemnly.
Will it
The
attack me
mysterious
when it
man
wakes up?
shook his head and chuckled without
You
saying a word.
replied, I don't know. With a wave of his palm,
Yi
a
Xian
golden
was
strip of
speechless.
cloth suddenly appeared before
you
Qin
continued.
Zhong. If it attacks you,
Qin
use the
Zhong's
pagoda to
expression
suppress
changed
it. Drastically when he saw
It's
the
already
golden
within
strip
the
of
pagoda,
cloth, so it can't defeat the pagoda.
Yi Xian heaved
A million
sigh of
miles to the
relief when
north
he
of the
heard
City of
this.
Order in the Eastern Wasteland
good.
domain was a sea region
Otherwise,
known as the sky
if every
concealing
single
sea
Tao
domain
law
was like a hue,
This
then
sea
it would be
region was
impossible
boundless
for
and
anyone
had
to
countless
live.
islands. Suddenly,
Because
the
energy
energy
of
of
qi
qi
in the
and the
veins
veins
of the
was
earth
thin.
and the
There were
surroundings
no
vanished.
valuable spiritual veins
The
or
Tao
natural
law
treasures.
gradually calmed down as well.
Therefore,
the Order Alliance had
Xian
never
gazed
sent
at the
anyone
Tao
to
law
manage
in
this
silence.
place. It was not
Suddenly,
worth
the
it to
Tao
waste
law turned
manpower
around
here
and fled.
As for this
Yi
place,
Xian was
very few
speechless.
people came here, because
You
even though there were
suddenly
many
spoke
islands
angrily.
here,
What are
they
you
weren't
still
very
standing there
valuable.
for?
Hurry
Stand
up
and
and
chase
shore.
it.
Yi Xian looked at
Yi
the vast
Xian
sea in the
hurriedly
distance
chased
and said
after it.
softly,
But he noticed
there are
that the
Tao
Tao
law
here.
was running really quickly.
At this time,
the prison
Meanwhile,
pagoda appeared in
you
front
said,
of it. Activate this
it
damn
swayed
pagoda,
about,
as if it was
Get it to
expressing
help.
something.
Yi
The
Xian
corner of Yi
hurriedly
Xian's
activated
mouth
the prison
twitched.
pagoda.
He hurriedly
This time,
said, the
Xiao
prison
Linger,
pagoda didn't
what is it
refuse,
saying?
and it immediately
Xiao
appeared
Linger
between his
appeared in
brows.
front of Yi Xian.
In the next moment,
She glanced
a strange
at Xiao
force
Tan
flashed,
said,
and
it
it didn't
said
take long
that
for the Tao law to be enveloped by a mysterious
Yi Xian's
force.
face darkened.
In the next moment,
Tao
it
laws.
vanished on the spot,
Xiao
and when it
Linger
appeared
hurriedly
again,
said,
it was in
Tao
front of Yi
laws.
Xian. It
Yi
said that
Xian
it was
was
about
hiding.
to speak when the prison pagoda
Hiding.
smashed against the Tao
Yi
law.
Xian was stunned. Bang!
He then looked
The
at the
Tao
prison
law
pagoda
was
blasted flying,
You're
and the
their
prison
master.
pagoda smashed against the Tao
Let
law.
it come out.
Yi Xian was speechless.
Hearing Yi
Xian's words,
A
the
moment
prison
later,
pagoda
the
seemed
great
a little
tunnel
agitated.
suddenly
Flew in front of Yi Xian.
It began to jump left and right.
It stuck close to Yi Xian
As it
if
began
was
to jump,
asking for
the
help.
space
in the field began
The
to
world
twist. Prison
strangely.
pagoda still wanted to charge
Yi
over.
Xian's eyelids twitched.
Yi Xian immediately said,
He hurriedly said,
"Stop!
What?
It already
What is it
knows its
doing?
mistake. Xiao Linger
Don't hit it
blinked.
again.
It's
angry.
The prison pagoda stopped. Yi Xian was puzzled. It bounced left and right before
What's it
returning
angry
to
about?
Yi Xian's body. Xiao Linger said,
Yi Xian
it
looked
said
at
that
the
those
great
Tao
Tao
laws
laws
don't
in
want
front
to
of him.
return after they escaped.
Why did you run?
They're all traitors.
After a
moment of silence,
Yi
a
Xian
voice had a
suddenly
strange
sounded in
expression
Yi
on his
Xian's
face.
mind.
He
I'm
knew
afraid
that some Tao
his
laws
voice
was
was
a little
extremely
immature,
formidable.
like that of a child. For example,
It
Yan
could
Jia
talk.
had taken human form,
Yi
but he
Xian
wasn't
was
willing to
stunned.
return. Then,
Obviously,
he asked, the other
what are you
high-level
afraid of?
Tao laws were definitely
The voice
thinking the
sounded
same
again.
thing.
Afraid
They'd
of
escaped
it,
with great
Yi
difficulty,
Xian shook his head.
so who would want to return? Needless to say,
Meanwhile,
he was
the
definitely
prison
talking
pagoda
about the
started
world
jumping
prison
again.
pagoda.
Xiao
This
Linger
Xiao Ta
gazed
was
at the prison
definitely
pagoda
not
for a
kind
long
person in the
time,
past, and then she looked at Yi Xian
He
and
had to be
spoke
more
in an
careful in the
extremely
future.
serious tone. Yi Xian
It said
collected
that
his
it lived
thoughts
on the
and
sixth
said with a
floor for
smile,
too long.
"Don't be afraid. You should ask
Just
it to
follow
move
me,
out, okay?" The prison pagoda
The great
turned to
Tao
Xiao
Linger.
fell silent for a while
Yi
before it
Xian's
said,
face
"All
darkened.
right."
You
After
said
that,
that.
it flew directly into
Xiao
the
Linger
space
blinked
between
with
Yi
a very
Xian's
innocent
brows and
expression.
hid in Yi Xian's sea of
Yi
consciousness
Xian said
instead of returning to the
seriously, "What
world prison
exactly did
pagoda.
it say?"
Xiao Linger hesitated for a
As
moment,
for Xiao
and then
Ta,
she said,
he didn't care
it
about
said
the
that
great
the
Tao
Tao
law
law
as
as
long
long
as it didn't run
but
away.
it's hidden. At
It
this
can't
moment,
sense it.
you suddenly said,
It wants you to
it
find it.
confused with your soul now.
Yi Xian said in a low
In other
voice.
words,
How
you
do
can
I find
completely
it?
borrow all of its
The
power.
prison
pagoda started jumping
course,
again. You have to know. The corners of Yi Xian's
Xian
mouth
was
twitched,
puzzled.
and he looked at Xiao Linger.
What do you mean?
Xiao Linger
you
blinked
said,
and said,
"You're so
it
weak
said
right
that it
now.
doesn't know, so you can't bear too
Yi
much earth
Xian was
energy and earth
speechless.
vein energy. Let alone
Meanwhile,
the legendary
Xiao
Earth
Linger
Spirit was
energy.
muttering something to the prison
So,
pagoda again.
you
have to restrain yourself when
She was
using
slightly
it,
excited,
otherwise, and she
you'll
gestured
explode.
quickly with her hands.
Yi Xian nodded.
The prison pagoda was
understand.
jumping as well,
As
and
he
it seemed to be
spoke,
expressing
he carefully
something. Sensed the great Tao law
After a
in his
short
divine
while,
sense. Xiao Linger calmed down.
It had
to be said that this power
But she
was
seemed to be
truly
too
slightly
tempting.
unwilling, and then she
However,
raised two
this
fingers.
power
didn't belong to him. Her attitude was very
Because
firm.
without
the great Tao law,
the prison
he wouldn't
pagoda
have this
swayed
power
from
side to side. Strictly speaking,
Obviously,
it was still
it didn't
external
agree.
help. But
Meanwhile,
now, he
Xiao
couldn't give
Linger
up on
turned
these
around and
external help.
disappeared.
Regardless
didn't
of
take
whether it
long
was the
for her to
Order
reappear.
Alliance or the Tang clan,
But at this
both were
moment,
much stronger
she was
than
holding
him.
a sword in her hand.
Under such circumstances,
Xiao
he
Linger
could only
pointed the
wait for
sword at
death
the
if he
prison
still
pagoda.
gave up on these external help. One-on-one. As if he'd thought
Yi
of something.
Xian was dumbfounded.
Asked, Miss Ake,
What's going on?
What Dao law do you possess?
How did they end up fighting just like that?
He was very curious about it.
The prison pagoda trembled, and then it smashed directly toward
none of your
Xiao
business.
Lil
I'm telling you,
don't
angrily.
even think about it.
Hey, give me your life.
Otherwise, I'll kill you.
As she spoke, she
Yi
slashed
Xian
at the
shook
prison
his head
pagoda
and
with her
smiled.
sword.
This
Just
woman's
like that,
temper wasn't
the
ordinary,
human and pagoda
and it could be
started
compared
fighting
to the
in
great
midair.
god from the second floor.
Yi Xian was dumbfounded.
The great god from the second floor.
What the hell is going on?
Actually, He noticed that he actually missed the great expression and became slightly solemn. I wonder where she's gone now. Because he noticed that Xiao Linger was very strong. A short moment later, Yi Xian shook his sword and was about to leave, but she herself was very strong. The space before him suddenly trembled. He knew the strength of the prison pagoda. Return to divine martial city quickly. Ordinary Dao vindication experts were not its match. Your younger sister is in danger. This Xiao Linger was actually evenly matched with it. This Xiao Linger's expression was like the prison pagoda. Heard this forever, and then he vanished on the spot. At this moment, the prison pagoda was very familiar with the person who passed the message. Xiao Linger hugged her sword and panted, "Let's stop first. Tang Clan, I'm a little tired. Hall of Heroes. Let's fight another day." All the powerhouses of the Tang Clan had gathered in the hall, trembled, expressing its agreement. The leader was Tang Yen. Xiao Linger hugged her sword and returned to the prison pagoda. I've received accurate news that the Order Alliance is going to attack Divine Martial City. The fight was fast, but it stopped just as fast. See, we won't touch Divine Martial City, but the Order Alliance will. Yi Xian shook his head, saying that, I don't understand the world of the big shots. Big sister, do you have any countermeasures? He looked at the distant sea region. Tang Qing said in a deep voice, Law. We can't let the Order Alliance destroy Divine Martial City. But he knew that he had to obtain it. Tang Yen said, the higher the level of Dao Law, the more terrifying its deep voice. The Order Alliance if he could is definitely doing it would definitely be of great benefit to him. Once they control Yi Ling, it's the same as controlling Yi Xian. Search. In that case, before long, Yi Xian will become entered the vast sea region. At that time, the surroundings will control the fifth dimensional treasure, and there were no demonic beasts, but they'll also have a super swordsman killer. 2 hours everyone later, should be very clear about Yi Xian's strength. Looking at the vast sea region before him, if it's an assassination, even knowledge realm powerhouses won't be able to stop it. During these 2 hours, Dao validation his divine sense swept the surrounding islands and sea region. But he didn't find anything. She looked up at Tang Yen. Where was this Dao Law? I suggest that we immediately send someone to stop it. Yi Xian was a little annoyed. Tang Yen looked at Tang Yi and Tang trembled, and he flew into the distance. Do you have anything to say? Before long, Tang Feng pondered for a while and on the sea surface. The Order Alliance must be on guard against our divine clan and the demon clan. And not only that, he also used the dragon soul. It means we'll have a falling out. At this moment, his divine sense covered the surrounding sea region. Falling out will happen sooner or later, and sooner or later there was still nothing. Why don't we attack first? Yi Xian withdrew his divine sense and I don't agree with helping them. At this moment, everyone looked at Tang Yi suddenly appeared in front of him. First, Divine Martial City is not as weak as we think. Sucked him into the whirlpool. Don't forget that they were at their peak. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically as soon as he entered the vortex. They must have some trump cards that no one knows about. He slashed forward with his sword, just like our Tang clan. However, who would know our trump cards before we faced the real threat of extinction? Yi Xian frowned and hurriedly said, "We all think that Wu Yuan's sword sect only has one ancestor's clone." There was no response. But what if they have two? Shocked, Yi Xian quickly contacted the world prison pagoda. Even if it's just a clone. Is not however, something a Dao validation powerhouse he had lost contact with the world prison pagoda. Third, why do we have to protect Yi Xian's sister? At this moment, can't Yi realize that he had stopped, and his surroundings and if he wants to protect them, he will definitely fight the divine martial arts city with everything he frowned slightly. At that time, he raised his hand just need to watch quietly and see what kind of trump cards this Yi Xian has. The sword light and we can also see what other trump cards the divine martial arts city has. Yi Xian's expression darkened. Nodded. He opened them exhaust each other, and in an instant, will attack at the last flying swords slashed in all directions. Tang Yi looked at Tang Qing and smiled. However, after these flying swords slashed, big sister, they disappeared without a sound. Tang Qing nodded. All disappeared. Both of you have a point. Yi Xian's expression was slightly unsightly. Tang Yi smiled and didn't say anything else. After a moment, he walked forward. Instead, but he looked at Tang all around him. Above, no matter how he walked, don't make like he was walking on the same spot. Let's wait and see. Around 2 hours later, as soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. During these 2 hours, the experts of the Tang clan retreated in succession, but it was still useless. Outside the hall, he was still trapped at the distant sky, thinking there was no sound, no light. Divine Martial City. Even his sword light couldn't survive in the last incident. The divine martial city had been heavily guarded. Besides him and the darkness, not only there was nothing but all the experts from the martial institution and the sword faction had returned to the sect. At this moment, Yi Xian was starting in a martial arts arena because this little girl was fighting with an old man. After an unknown amount of time, extremely swift like a suddenly stood up, and her attacks were extremely He slashed forward with his sword. But every single attack was aimed at the old man's vital points. There was no movement at all. However, the old man gradually dealt with them. Yi Xian's expression became slightly ferocious. The little girl was Yi Ling, and the old man was the previous dean of Wu Yuan. Come out and fight me. After a short while, there was no movement at all. There was no response and said, "You're still not fast enough, and your combat awareness is lacking." He immediately used the dragon soul and dragon force. Yi Ling bowed slightly. Flying swords flew everywhere. Grandpa Wu, but almost in an instant, harder. these flying swords all disappeared into the darkness. Another long time passed. He had to admit that he really liked the little girl before him. He had lost the concept of time. Perhaps it was because she'd suffered too much in because he didn't know how much time had didn't have the slightest air of a pampered disciple from a wealthy clan. He felt like a few years had passed. She was extremely sensible. Torture. Now, smiled he felt like he was being tortured every second of the day. You can't rush things in battle. He felt like he was about to collapse. You have to take it slow. He even wanted to be freed. Yi Ling nodded her head. When this thought appeared in his mind, just when she was about to speak, was instantly an explosion that sounded like a clap of thunder resounded in the sky above the academy. His state of mind was so unbearable. Immediately after, when he encountered a huge hole was torn open in the sky. He would actually want to give up, and very quickly, 30 people flashed out from it like ghosts. He would also be angry because of failure, and anger was the expression of an incompetent person. They were already above. He was a swordsman with a clear sword heart, expression but at this moment, changed drastically. His state of mind was so irritating. After a long time, Yi Xian finally understood as soon as he finished speaking, he pulled Yi Ling behind him, and then he suddenly waved his right hand. Were not reflected. An enormous golden shield smashed towards the group of black-clothed figures. A person's flaws and evil side were right at this moment, but as long as there was a chance, of light they would be completely exposed. And then the golden shield instantly shattered into countless pieces. It was often said that human nature could not withstand tests and scrutiny. A few tens of cold rays of light flashed towards Wu Wen. He must look straight into his heart, Wu Wen's straight into his worst and most evil side. He suddenly pressed his palms together and pressed them forward, heavenly straight into his heart, recognize it, and follow it. An enormous palm suddenly stretched out from the space in front of him, and I'm the bad. And then it smashed towards the black both good and bad are me. However, thinking of this enormous palm, the sword hadn't even approached the black trembled figures when it was directly slashed into pieces. Yi Xian said softly, right at this moment, immortal to an immortal, a sword howl from an immortal resounded from the distant horizon, and to become a saint. One must first recognize an old man appeared directly in front of Wu Wen, and then an expanse of light surged out and instantly forced the black-clothed figures over 100 and back. Yi Xian am shameless. The person who'd arrived was the sword sex extraordinary sword saint. I will have crooked thoughts. Besides that, I am such a shameless and shameless person. Suddenly left the sword sect and arrived at Wu Wen. A sword's hum suddenly resounded in this darkness. There were an entire 12 Dao realm swordsmen, and there were even 2 Dao validation realm swordsmen amongst them. Chapter 573. On the other hand, in the darkness, all the experts of Wu Yuan had resounded and did not stop for a long time. And in Lanxiu, the sword could communicate, and the others had appeared as well. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, looked down at everyone below him, and his sword didn't contain a trace of emotion. Understanding the heart, he didn't waste his breath. At this moment, he understood one thing, and that was to clearly understand his own heart. Chatted with me for half the night. A person could deceive anyone in the world, but he asked me to just update 2 chapters every day. Heart. He said that sitting for too long isn't good for the kidneys, and sitting for too long will cause his palm. He asked me not to follow, and his spun violently. So, the sword I didn't dare to write anymore after writing 2 chapters yesterday. Good and evil sword intense. At this moment, his sword intent had undergone a transformation. Chapter 579. And with the support of his sword intent, the soul-suppressing sword in his hand had also undergone an earth-shattering transformation. 30 law enforcers charged towards Wu Wen and the others. Soul's voice suddenly sounded. They were like congratulations, and were extremely young master. Your sword path has entered the sage realm. Besides Yu Wuchen, all the other experts from the sword sect who had rushed over to Wu Yuan were stopped. What is the difference between a sword sage and a sword about to attack when 2 powerful auras enveloped him? After a moment of silence, proving realm experts said, Young master, Yu Wuchen didn't dare to be careless, and he said in a low voice, Yi Xian opened his left hand, watch out. And soon, the 2 kinds of sword intents enveloped him. He transformed into a ray of light that shot. He discovered that his sword intents seemed to have something more inexplicable than realm experts didn't dare to be careless. At this time, Soul suddenly said, before them young master's sword intent has a trace of spiritual intelligence than before. The 3 of them were engaged in an intense battle above Wu Yuan. Yi Xian asked, meanwhile, what do you mean? The Dao realm experts from Wu Yuan charged all things have the law enforcers, and so does sword intent. However, they were instantly crushed. Whether a sword intent can have a spirit or not depends on its master. Young master's state of mind suddenly charged towards, and he has a more thorough understanding of himself and the sword. It was extremely swift, and this understanding has directly led to the transformation of young master's sword intent. Wu Wen's expression turned ferocious. This transformation is a living being. He clenched his right hand into a sword intent has a spirit, and its power and effect are at least 50% higher than before. A powerful force swept out from his fist after young master became a sword sage. His strength also increased by at least 50%. Meanwhile, the black figure in front of Wu Wen suddenly punched as well. Yi Xian opened his palm, very simple and the sword in his hand suddenly flew out. The force released by Wu Wen's fist instantly vanished without a trace. This speed was indeed in the next 50% faster than before. Explosively. Now, the figure didn't chase after he could kill a knowledge realm powerhouse head-on instead. If it was an
Yi Ling's
assassination,
face was
he
expressionless
could even
as
try
he
to
watched
kill
the
a Dao
figure charge at
validation
him,
powerhouse.
and there wasn't a trace of fear on his face.
At this time, Little Soul suddenly
Right when the
said,
figure approached
"Young
Yi
master,
Ling,
you
a
must
spear
not be
suddenly
arrogant
tore
and
through the
complacent."
air beside him.
Becoming a saint
The
may
spear
just
was
be
like
the
a
beginning,
bolt of lightning,
and it
This
emitted a
sword
sharp
Dao
and
entering
ear-piercing
sainthood is like
tearing
a
sound.
Genesis Dao expert who has
The
just
figure
come
had
into
no
contact
choice
with the
but to
Dao.
stop.
The word
Because if he
Dao
didn't,
is
then
broad
the
and
spear would
profound,
pierce through
and
his head
involves
even if
far
he
too
caught
many
hold of Yi
things.
Ling.
It's
This
not
was a
something
spear
that can
that
be
could
understood
threaten
in a
him.
day.
The
Yi
figure stopped
Xian
abruptly,
nodded,
and he grabbed towards the
Understood.
right with his right hand,
As he
blocking
spoke,
the spear
he
with his
glanced
palm.
around.
Bang! Little
The
Soul,
afterimage
do you
forcefully
know where this
blocked the
place
spear.
is?
And
Little
the power
Soul
of this
said in a
spear
low
directly
voice,
shattered the
"I don't
black
know."
shadow that enveloped him.
This place is very
The
strange.
black shadow
Young
dissipated,
master must be careful.
revealing a middle-aged man with
Yi
long hair
Xian
that
nodded.
reached his shoulders.
He held on to his
Right
sword
at this
and walked
moment,
towards
a
the
white
distance.
figure flashed by,
At
and then
this
a leg
moment,
kicked the
his sword
handle of
and
the
tent
spear
began
and
to
next
spread
moment.
out in all directions.
Boom!
Not only
The
that,
long-haired
but he also
middle-aged
used
man
the power of the
instantly
dragon's
retreated 100
soul.
feet.
With the
The
support
person
of the
that
dragon's
attacked
soul,
was precisely
the
in
sword
Lanxiao.
intent became even more
And
powerful.
Lanxiao stood in front of Yi Ling.
But in next to
calmly
no
looking
time,
at the
Yi
long-haired
Xian
man,
noticed that his sword intent
the
was
latter
being
suddenly
destroyed by a
disappeared.
mysterious force.
And Lanxiao's beautiful
Yi Xian's
brows knit
expression
together
turned
slightly.
cold when he noticed this.
In the blink
and then
of
he
an
turned
eye,
around
her
and
arms
vanished.
suddenly swept
In
horizontally
an instant,
forward.
countless rays of
Boom.
sword light crisscrossed within this expanse of darkness. In an instant,
Swish.
and Lanxiao had directly appeared
tearing
300
sound
m away.
suddenly resounded
But in the
in
next
this
moment,
darkness,
she
and soon,
suddenly vanished.
a ray of white light appeared not
Rumble.
far away from Yi Xian.
An explosion suddenly
Seeing
resounded
this,
in front of
Yi
Yi Ling,
Xian hurriedly
and the long-haired
flashed forward and
middle-aged
charged
man that was
directly
charging
into the
the ray
ray
of
of
white
light.
was forcefully pushed back
A
by
moment
a formidable
later,
force.
Yi Xian felt a gust of
And
cold
Lanxiao
wind.
appeared in front of Yi Ling
At
once
this
more.
moment, he had returned to
The
the
long-haired
sea.
man gazed coldly
Yi
at
Xian
Lanxiao.
greedily absorbed everything around
He
him.
knew that if
and
he
a
wanted
moment
to
later,
capture Yi Ling,
he said
then he had to
softly,
pass
as
through
expected,
Lanxiao first.
only when everything is lost
When
does
he thought
everything
up to
seem
here,
so precious.
he slowly clenched his right hand.
Just now,
and then he
in that
suddenly
darkness,
stomped his right
he
foot on
truly
the
felt
ground.
that time passed like a year.
Bang! That
The
feeling
ground
was even
instantly
more
collapsed
terrifying
into
than when he had
pieces.
fought a dozen Dao realm
In the blink of an
experts.
eye, an afterimage
Endless
suddenly
darkness
appeared in
without
front
any
of
hope.
Lanxiao.
It was a
At the
slow
instant
torture.
that this afterimage appeared
Are
in
you
front
the
of
new
Lanxiao,
master?
numerous
At
afterimages
this
had
moment,
actually
a
appeared in
voice
the
suddenly
surroundings as
resounded
well.
not far away from Yi Xian.
Every single afterimage was
Yi
so
Xian
real.
suddenly opened his
And
eyes.
Lanxiao opened her palm.
Not
and
far
then a
away
fiery
from him
red
stood a
spear
woman in a
suddenly
black
appeared in
dress.
her palm.
The woman
In the
looked
next
less than
moment,
20 years
she
old,
suddenly
wore
swept
a
it
black dress
horizontally.
that was as black as ink,
Hiss.
and there was a bit of cinnabar
The
between
spear
her
was like a
brows.
flaming dragon, and
Yi
a strand
Xian
of flames
said in a low
instantly
voice,
swept out
"You
and
are the
swept
Dao
through
Law."
everything. The woman
Rumble.
looked at him coldly and didn't
The
speak.
afterimages in the surroundings
At this
instantly
moment,
vanished
Yi
into thin
Xian
air.
suddenly patted the prison
At the
pagoda
same
lightly.
time, a figure instantly
Come out.
retreated 300 m away.
However, there was no movement
it was the
from the prison
long-haired
pagoda.
man.
After
Yi
the
Xian
long-haired
was
man was
stunned.
blasted back,
Not
he suddenly
coming out.
stretched out his right hand
At
in
this
the next
moment,
he could
and then he
already
pressed
sense
it
the
down
prison
lightly.
pagoda.
Where his
The
palm
Dao Law
descended,
was right before
space
him,
seemed as if
but
a
this
pebble
fellow
had fallen
actually
into the
didn't
pool
come
of
out.
water.
What's the
Ripples
meaning of
arose
this?
from the pool of water that the
As if
pebble
he had
fell
thought
into.
of something,
Yi
and
Xian's
Lanxiao's
expression
expression
instantly changed,
and he
drastically,
cursed in his heart.
and she suddenly stabbed
Could
the
it be
spear
that it
in her
can't
right
defeat
hand
the prison
forward,
pagoda,
so it doesn't dare
Rumble.
to come out?
The spear
When he
stabbed
thought
forward,
of this, and it
cold
tore
sweat
through
instantly
everything.
flowed down Yi Xian's
In the
back.
next moment, bang!
That's entirely possible.
And Lanxiao was instantly blasted,
Even though the
flying
prison
along with her
pagoda
spear,
is formidable,
and she
what's
flew
its
for an
current
entire
state?
300 m away.
It's half crippled.
She just stopped when
Under
a wisp
such
of blood seeped
circumstances,
out from the
it
corner
might
of
really
her
be
mouth.
unable to defeat the
The
Dao laws of
long-haired
these
man
monsters.
had suddenly
At
vanished.
this moment, the woman in a
And
black
Lanxiao's
dress suddenly
eyes
said,
narrowed slightly.
"You're so weak. So why
She
did it
suddenly
choose
let
you as
go
its
of the
master?"
spear in her hand, and then
Yi
she
Xian
clenched her
looked at
right
the woman
hand
in a
into a
black
fist
dress,
before she took
and
a
he
step
hesitated
forward.
for a moment before he asked.
At the same time, her
Am I
right
very
hand
weak?
smashed forward.
The woman in a black
Blink.
dress frowned slightly.
Her fist struck out.
"Are you not weak?"
Bang!
The space
Yi
in front of her
Xian thought for a
instantly
moment and
collapsed,
said,
and the
"Why do you
ground in the
think I'm weak?"
surroundings was instantly
The
transformed
woman in
into
a black
powder.
dress gazed at Yi Xian.
On the other hand, the
She
long-haired
didn't
man was
speak,
forcefully
but she
forced
suddenly
to a stop
flicked
in
her
front of
sleeve.
Lanxiao, and he
Yi
gazed calmly
Xian's
at her.
expression instantly changed
Every
drastically,
generation
and
produces
he raised his
geniuses.
sword to block it.
And Lanxiao's
Bang.
face was emotionless.
In an and she just stood there in front of Yi retreated explosively by over 1 kilometer, and she clenched her right hand tightly while a strand of energy silently 3 kilometers in front of him had turned pitch black. At this moment, numerous shrill cries resounded. His right hand had lost all feeling. Tragic. Yi Xian's expression instantly became extremely solemn. Wu Yuan joined forces. Meanwhile, they still weren't a woman walked out from within the pitch black space. It was the woman in a black dress. If it weren't for the various formations in Wu Yuan, the woman in the black all the Dao realm experts in Wu Yuan would have fallen long ago. In the air, Qin Tian hadn't made a move yet. Now he knew why the prison pagoda didn't come out. Waiting for Yi Xian. The current prison pagoda was definitely unable to defeat the woman in the black dress.
If Yi Xian appeared, based on what she someone from the Order Alliance would definitely had the prison pagoda, and she didn't seem afraid at all. Yi Xian would immediately
Meanwhile,
the woman in a black dress
needed to do
was
said,
to wait for
make
Yi
it come
Xian
out.
to appear. Yi Xian
Once Yi
hesitated
Xian
for a
appeared,
moment,
he must
and then
restrain
he
Yi
said,
Xian.
"Why don't you go in?" Apart from the
The
Order
woman's
Alliance,
eyes narrowed
there was
slightly.
another group of experts outside
Do I
the
look very
Qingwu city.
stupid?
Tang
Yi
Clan
Xian was speechless.
When the Order Alliance
The
attacked
woman
Wu
gazed
Yuan,
at Yi Xian
they had
and
already
asked,
rushed over.
"Why did it choose you?"
Besides Tang
Yi
Qin,
Xian thought for a
Tang
moment,
Yi, and
and
Tang
then he
Feng
said,
were also
"Miss,
present. Firstly, my
behind
kind
the
strength
three of
isn't
them,
very
there were
strong
30
indeed.
Tang Clan cavalrymen.
However,
all of
don't you
whom
think
would
that I
die
have a
realm
lot of
experts.
potential?
Besides
Potential?
Tang Qin,
Tang
the woman
Feng
said
spoke coldly,
softly,
"Back
"You have a
then,
hair.
When Zhou Yafu was
You don't
still
even
in
have a
Wu Yuan,
hair.
How prestigious was
Yi
Wu Yuan
Xian
back
was
then?"
dumbstruck.
He alone
This
is enough
woman
to suppress
is
my
using
Tang Clan
vulgarities.
and the Order Alliance.
The woman gazed
But
coldly
now,
at Yi Xian.
Then,
Make
he
it
shook
come
his
out.
head and didn't continue speaking.
I'm going to beat it to death.
Tang Yi said with a
It
smile.
actually chose
The
such a
primordial
weak
race
person
was
to be
so
its
powerful
master.
back then. But
I
didn't
want
they
to
still
see if it's
disappear?
blind.
Everyone
Yi
says that I
Xian's face
control my
sank,
own fate,
and he roared
but it's all
furiously
in his
nonsense.
heart.
Who
You
isn't
can even
immortal in
tolerate
front of
that?
fate?
Come out
Tang
and beat
Feng
it.
smiled.
There was no movement
Second
in
brother,
the prison
I have a
pagoda.
feeling that among the younger
At this
generation
moment,
of the Tang
Xiao
clan,
Ling, besides
suddenly
seventh
said,
brother,
"It
you're the
wants you to beat
strongest."
it. Yi
Seventh
Xian
Tang
was furious.
Hearing this,
I can beat
Tang
it,
Qin
and you
frowned
want me to call
slightly.
you over?
Everyone
Xiao
in the Tang
Ling
clan knew
suddenly
about this
said,
person.
"Do you want me to beat it for you?"
This person was known as the
Yi
most
Xian
monstrous
hurriedly
person in the
nodded.
Tang clan after Munanji.
All right.
However,
When Xiao Ling
he had no
held
interest
that
in the
sword,
position of
her
crown
combat
prince.
strength was extremely
He had
terrifying.
left the Tang clan since young to
As
travel.
soon as Yi Xian spoke,
Even the clan
Xiao Ling
leader couldn't do
instantly
anything about
appeared
him.
in front of him,
And she
It
was
was
holding
worth
a sword
mentioning
in her
that the
hand.
seventh Tang was ranked second
Xiao
on the law
Ling
rank.
glanced at the woman in a
Tang
black
Yi
dress in the
chuckled.
distance. Seventh brother.
She
hesitated
Boom.
for a moment, and then
At
she
this
looked
moment,
at Yi Xian.
a loud noise came from
Sorry,
below.
my stomach
The three
hurts.
of them withdrew their thoughts and
I'll
looked
talk to you
down.
later. In the city
After
below,
she finished
Wu Yuan's
speaking,
formations
she
were
turned
disappearing
and ran
one
back
after
into the
another.
prison pagoda.
Wu Yuan's
Yi
experts
Xian's
were falling
expression
one
froze.
after another.
Why does that
including the
sound
sword
so
sect.
familiar?
In
Wu
right
Yuan.
at this moment, the woman
And
in a
Lancio
black
looked
dress
to her
suddenly
right and her
vanished on the
face
spot.
darkened.
Yi
Wu
Xian's
Yuan's
expression
situation
instantly
wasn't good.
changed drastically. It was only a matter of
He
time
stabbed
before they were
swiftly with
defeated.
his sword.
An array of
At
cold
this
light
moment,
flashed
Wu
like a
Yuan,
bolt of
who was
lightning.
fighting far away,
Bang!
suddenly sent a voice transmission.
An explosion resounded, and
Xiao
then
Ling,
Yi Xian's
take Yi
figure
Ling
was
and
pushed
leave.
over 1 kilometer back.
Take Yi Ling and leave.
Not
As
only
soon as
did
he stopped
Lancio hear
moving,
this,
he
but the
suddenly
nearby
felt the scene
Amos
before him
and
darken.
Lian Wanli also heard
This
this.
time,
he didn't dare hold back
Obviously,
at all.
Wu Yuan
and
wanted
he
to
immediately
protect the
utilized
geniuses
his
of Wu
dragon
Yuan.
soul energy and dragon
At the same
energy.
time,
He felt that
At
there
the
was
same
no
time,
hope. 2 types of sword
leave.
intent swept out from
And
within
Lancio
him.
looked at Yi Ling, leave.
Slash. Yi Ling looked
As
straight
soon
at
as
him.
Yi Xian
Lancio
spoke,
a ray of light
No.
slashed down forcefully.
I'm a member of Wu Yuan.
Hiss. And Lancio
A sharp
smiled.
sound of something tearing apart
All right.
resounded.
As soon as she
Rumble.
finished speaking,
As
she
soon
looked
as
at
Yi
Amos
Xian's
Xia
sword
and Lian
slashed
Wanli.
down,
His figure was blasted
Amos Xia
flying
pondered
again
for a moment,
and then
This
he looked
time,
up and
he
closed his
flew for
eyes almost
slowly.
3 kilometers. As soon as he stopped,
In the next
a wisp
moment,
of blood
a
seeped
powerful
out from the
force
corner
suddenly
of Yi
emanated
Xian's
from his
mouth.
body.
Yi
In the
Xian
sky,
wiped off the
Qin
blood from the
Tian
corner
looked
of
at
his
Amos
mouth,
Xia,
and his expression was
The
quite
latter's
unsightly.
body started to tremble violently.
My first battle as a sword
At the
saint
same
is
time,
already so
a strange
miserable.
red glow emanated from his
Meanwhile,
body.
the woman in a black
Qin
dress appeared
Tian's
before him
eyes
again.
narrowed slightly.
She gazed coldly
Meanwhile,
at Yi Xian,
Amos Xia
handed
suddenly
over.
charged into the sky.
Yi
and
Xian
in the
was
blink of an
furious,
eye,
and he
thought to
collided
himself,
with an enforcer
"You
of
asked
the
me
Order
to look
Alliance.
for the Dao Law,
and now
The
I found
enforcer's reaction was extremely
Why aren't you
fast.
coming out? He
Are you just
immediately
going to watch me
transformed
get
into a
beaten
black
up?
shadow and charged at
Xiao
Amos
Ling
Xia.
said,
It said
a
that it
moment
didn't
of
ask you to get
silence.
beaten up, so you can hit her.
Bang.
I
Under
think what it
everyone's
said makes
gaze,
sense.
the law enforcer was sent
Yi
flying.
Xian was speechless.
As soon as he stopped,
Meanwhile,
his body
the woman in a
exploded and
black
blood
dress was
splattered
about
everywhere.
to attack again, but Yi
Amos
Xian
Xia
turned
stood
around
on the
and
spot.
fled. His
He was
right hand was
extremely
wrapped in
swift,
flames,
and he vanished
into
into
the
the
horizon
horizon
in the blink of an
surged
eye.
out incessantly from
The
within
woman
his
in a
body.
black dress was stunned.
Qin Tian's eyes
He
instantly
ran.
turned icy cold
He
when
ran
he
just
witnessed
like
this
that.
scene.
Obviously,
Tang Yi looked at
she
Amos
hadn't
Xia
expected
in the
that
dark
Yi
and said
Xian
softly,
would actually run.
"This person."
In the next
Bloodline
moment,
awakening.
she chased after
Bloodline
Yi Xian.
awakening.
At the
Such
end
a
of the
person
horizon,
was definitely
Yi
one of the
Xian
top
was
geniuses
dashing
in the
madly on
world. his sword.
After all,
Meanwhile,
the only person
Shaolin
in the Tang family
voice
who had awakened his
abruptly.
bloodline was
It
the
asked you
seventh
not
young
to run
master
and to
Tang.
hit her,
cripple her,
of course,
and then drag her in
bloodline
here
wasn't
so that
the
we
only
can torture
standard
her
for
together.
experts.
But those who had
Yi
awakened their
Xian's face
bloodline
darkened,
were definitely
asked
not
it if it
weak.
knows whether it can or can't
Right
beat
at this
her.
moment, Lian warmly
Shaolin
suddenly raised
said,
her saber
"It
and
said that it'll
charged
hit
into
you
the
if you
sky.
continue running."
Her target was
Yi
an
Xian
enforcer as
flared
well.
up with rage. Can you not bully
Azure Dragon
saber
saber
in her hands suddenly trembled
Can
violently.
you have some backbone?
And then she slashed it at the
Can
enforcer.
you come out and fight her head on?
As the saber slashed
Can you
down,
not hide in there
an
like a
Azure
turtle?
Dragon that was over 3
After a
kilometers
moment of
long
silence,
suddenly flashed out from the saber.
suddenly said,
Azure Dragon
why you
roar.
can't defeat her.
Bang! Yi Xian thought for
The
a moment,
enforcer was
and then he
instantly
said,
devoured by
I
the
really
Azure
want to know
Dragon.
the answer to that as well.
The Azure Dragon circled
Right
in
at
the
this
sky
moment,
above
the
divine
woman in a
martial
black
city,
dress
and
suddenly
strands
appeared
of
in front
dragon
of Yi
might shook
Xian,
down
and Yi
incessantly.
Xian stopped. Qin Tian
She
stared
gazed
at Yi
fixedly
Xian,
at the enormous
you actually
dragon that was
fled.
over 3 kilometers long.
Yi Xian was just about to
At this
speak
moment,
when the space
he
on his right
realized that
suddenly
he'd
rippled
underestimated
violently,
this genius
and then a
of the
woman
younger
walked out.
generation in Wuyuan.
The person who came
Meanwhile,
was Zhao Mu.
Lian Wanli suddenly
Yi
looked at
Xian's
Qin
expression
Tian and
instantly
said,
became
"Come,
unsightly
take
when he
this."
saw Lin Mook. As soon as she
Misfortune
finished
never
speaking,
comes alone.
her body trembled and she
When
charged
Lin Mook saw
towards
Yi
Qin
Xian,
Tian. She clenched her right hand
At the same
tightly.
time,
The Azure
However,
Dragon in the sky
right at this
suddenly
moment,
turned into
over
a ray of
100
light
meters
and
to Yi
disappeared
Xian's
into
right.
Lian
The
Wanli's
space
saber.
there suddenly split open.
At this
and
moment,
then a group of
she
black
just happened to reach
people
Qin
floated out.
Tian's head and slashed down with her saber. The person in the lead
As the
was the
saber
black-robed
slashed
old
down,
man from the
the
Order
dragon's
Alliance.
roar shook the heavens and earth.
Moreover, the 9
Qin
black
Tian was
figures behind the
expressionless.
old man were all knowledge
In the
realm
center of his
experts.
palm, a ray of white
This
light
group had just
quietly
appeared when a
condensed.
ray of white light flickered
In the
over
next
30
moment,
to
he
Yi
suddenly
Xian's
lifted
left,
it up.
and then 11 people
Bang.
suddenly appeared. A ray of
It was
white
the
light
Tang
shot
clan's
up into
Lin
the
Mook,
sky, and there were 9 Tang
Bang.
clan cavalrymen standing
The
behind
white
him.
light shattered,
but
Yi
Lian Wanli
Xian
was
was
directly
speechless.
sent flying.
P.S.
A few hundred
Who else
meters
is
away,
celebrating their
Lian
birthday?
Wanli had just stopped when a
Step
ray
forward.
of sword light
I want to
suddenly
see just how
flashed across the
thick-skinned you can be.
battlefield. Lian Wanli's expression changed drastically. Chapter 574.
She forcefully
dodged to the side.
Everyone
but it
was
was still
here.
a little too late. Yi Xian had calmed down An
instead.
arm was directly sent flying. All of them intended to kill him. So, here's the problem.
And
at Lian Wanli's original
Who should
position
I let
stood
kill
an
him?
old man holding a sheath.
He didn't
long
dare
sword.
to answer or ask.
A Dao validation
The
expert.
atmosphere
here had become quite
Moreover,
strange. He was a sword saint.
Regardless of whether it was
the old
Order
man did
Alliance,
not stop.
the Tang clan,
His
Zhao
sword
Mu,
intent
or the woman in a
enveloped
black
Lian Wanli,
dress,
and the
none
sword
of them
in his
attacked
hand
first.
suddenly trembled violently.
Meanwhile,
accumulating
Yi Xian
power and
suddenly
waiting to
said,
be unleashed.
"Everyone,
why don't we sit
below,
down and have
and
a chat?"
Lanxio's
expression changed
What's the
drastically.
point of fighting and killing every
Just
single
as she
day?
was about to act,
Let's
the
calm
long-haired
down,
man in front of
have
her
some
suddenly
tea,
took a
and
step
chat.
forward, and an invisible
Life is
pressure
still
directly
very
enveloped
beautiful.
her. In
I-
the air, after the old
Shut up.
swordsman's sword intent
The
enveloped
woman in a
Lian
black
Wanli,
dress suddenly
he lightly
glanced at Yi
stomped his
Xian,
right foot,
and then she
from the
gazed at
sheath
the
in
members
his
of the
hand,
Order
a
Alliance.
sword suddenly
Where did
flew
all
out
of you
at
come
an
from?
extremely fast speed.
Fuck off right now.
Not far away,
Yi
Lian
Xian
Wanli
hurriedly
knew that she
gave her
had
a
nowhere
thumbs
to
up.
retreat.
How
So
domineering.
she fiercely slashed forward At with this the saber
moment,
in her left
he
hand.
kind of
liked this black-dressed woman's
Sword
hot
arrived.
temper.
Bang.
The black-robed old man from the
The
Order
Azure
Alliance
Dragon
frowned
saber
slightly
shook
when he
violently.
heard her, and
Who are
Lian
you?
Wanli's left hand was
She
directly
was just
shattered
about to speak when
blood
Yi Xian
splattering
hurriedly
everywhere.
said,
"She's my big sister."
And at this
moment, another
the
ray
woman
of
in the
sword
black
light
dress
flashed
looked at
across
Yi
the
Xian.
battlefield, heading straight
Yi
for
Xian
Lian
hurried
Wanli's
to shut
forehead.
up.
At
Then
this
he
moment,
stood there quietly,
Lian Wanli knew
motionless.
that she could not block this sword.
Big sister.
She slowly
The
closed her
black-robed old
eyes
man
and softly
gazed at her
said, and was
Yi
about to
Xian,
speak when she
after
suddenly
this queen
vanished.
dies, will you miss me?
At the instant that the woman in
Sword
black
arrived.
disappeared, the expressions of
Chi.
everyone in the surroundings
Blood
changed
splattered
drastically.
everywhere.
It was especially so for the black-robed old man. He crossed his arms before swiftly sweeping them
Chapter
forward.
580. Bang.
This blood wasn't Lian
The others
Wanli's
hadn't
blood.
even recovered
It
from
was
their
Yi Ling's
shock
blood. When the
blood.
black-robed old man
Yi
was
Ling
blasted
had
over
suddenly
1
appeared
kilometer
in
front
away.
of Lian Wanli. Moreover,
And
his
Lanxio
arms
was
had
being
vanished
held
as
back
soon
by
as
the
he stopped
long-haired
moving.
man.
But she wasn't
The
being held
expressions
back
of
by
everyone
anyone.
here
instantly became extremely solemn
she'd
when they
supported
witnessed
Lian
Lian
Wanli
Wanli decisively when she
Zhao
saw
Mu
that he was
glanced
in
at the
danger.
black-robed woman but
At
didn't
this
speak a
moment,
word.
Yi Ling's palm was
She
forcefully
gazed coldly
resisting
at
the
that sword.
black-robed old man's group.
However,
Trash. Her strength wasn't strong
The
enough.
black-robed
So
old
her
man
palm was
stared
directly
fixedly
pierced
at her
through
with an
by the extremely
sword.
solemn expression.
However,
Who are you? It had saved Lian
The
Wanli's
black-dressed
life. Woman ignored the
Yi
black-robed
Ling
old
stared
man.
fixedly at the swordsman who
Instead,
stood before
she
her,
turned to look
and
at
the
Yi
latter
Xian,
suddenly pressed
who had
his
retreated
fingers
hundreds
together
of
and
feet
pointed.
away. A
Are you
strand
trying
of
to
sword
run?
light flashed. Yi Xian shook
Yi
his
Ling
head.
disregarded the injury on
No.
her hand,
And her figure
The
shook as she
black-dressed
charged
woman
forward
pointed
at
at
the
the black-robed
black-robed old
down.
man and the others. Rumble.
Are they here to kill you?
As soon as her palm descended,
Yi
the
Xian
space
nodded.
in front of her instantly
The
trembled
black-dressed
violently,
woman said
and a
angrily,
powerful force
"They came to
blasted
kill you,
directly
and
onto
you
the
ran?"
sword light. You are the
However,
tower
the The sword light directly tore through Yiling's of the 5 dimensions, and it continued forward and slashed at Yiling. She suddenly stopped. Yiling pressed her palms together, Yixian asked, shouted lightly, "What's in charge of the 5 dimensions?" And then moved forward. Everyone turned to look at the black-dressed woman. The sword light was forcefully stopped. The black-dressed woman suddenly turned to look at Lin. The old man suddenly vanished. She angrily said, "Yiling's expression changed drastically, and she clenched her palm into a fist and she smashed her right foot. Bang! Boom!
Hiss.
The space in front of her collapsed
along with an
explosion
and a powerful force swept towards Lin Mook, and the other's figure was suddenly blasted flying.
Boom, boom,
At the
boom.
instant that she flew through the air, she smashed heavily against a hall in the
Mook and the others
she
were
hadn't
blasted
even descended to the ground when a sword suddenly stabbed into her shoulder.
Yi Xian's eyelids twitched.
Hiss.
This
Yi
woman's
Ling's
strength
brows
was
knit
definitely
together
that of a
slightly,
Dao
but she didn't
validation
cry.
expert.
She gritted her
moment,
teeth and
Zhao Mu
forcefully
suddenly
held
looked
on.
at the black-dressed woman.
The swordsman glanced at Yi
She had
Ling,
also been
and then his
blasted
figure
back,
shook as he
but she had
charged
only been
directly at Yi
blasted
Ling.
back a few feet.
Right at this moment,
Seeing
a
Zhao
figure
Mu look
suddenly
over,
appeared in
the
front of Yi
black-dressed
Ling.
woman raised her brows.
It was Wu Wen. Unhappy,
Wu Wen's expression
Zhao
turned
Mu
savage.
nodded. In the
The
next
profound
moment,
energy within
she
his
dashed
body
forward
surged
like a
as she
cheetah
clenched
that had
his
been
right
waiting
hand
for a long
tightly,
time.
and then a powerful
Her
force
speed
instantly
was so
condensed
fast
in his
that
fist.
even Yi Xian couldn't see
In
her
the next
clearly.
moment, he suddenly
The
smashed his
black-dressed
fist
woman
forward,
sneered and directly punched
Rumble.
towards Zhao Mu's fist.
The space instantly collapsed,
Simple and
the
direct
powerful
violence.
force forced the swordsman to
As
stop.
soon as their fists collided,
However,
boom,
at the next moment,
the
a
surrounding
beam of sword
space
light
violently
flashed
trembled
towards Wu Wen.
Neither of them
Wu Wen
retreated.
fiercely clapped his hands together.
Both of them forcefully withstood each
Boom.
other's strength.
This combination
At this
directly
moment,
clasped
the
a
black-dressed
sword,
woman's
but the powerful
fist suddenly
force
spun
also
forward.
shook him to the point that he was forced to
Boom.
retreat repeatedly.
The space in the surroundings
air,
instantly
Qin
cracked
Tian
apart,
glanced
but
down,
Zhao Mu
but
actually
he still
did
did
not
not
make a move. The black-dressed
Wait.
woman's brows knit
He had
together
never
slightly
looked
when
down
she
on Yi
witnessed the
Xian.
scene. He also
Meanwhile,
knew that Yi
Zhao Mu
Xian would
suddenly
definitely unclenched
appear.
her fist and opened it.
Wait.
After that,
He was waiting
she
for
grabbed
Yi
the
Xian to
black-dressed
appear.
woman's fist and twisted it.
The experts of the Tang
In an
clan
instant,
were waiting
a
in
powerful
secret.
force swept out from
They
the
knew
center
that
of her
Yi
palm.
Xian would definitely return.
Suddenly, a ray of
In
black
Yi
light
Xian's
surged
heart,
out
there
from
was
her
nothing
palm.
more important than his sister.
Bang. What
In
they
an
needed
instant,
to do was
the
wait for
space
Yi
in an
Xian
area
to
of 3
appear and
kilometers
force out
turned
Yi
pitch
Xian's
black.
trump card.
The expressions of the experts from the Order Alliance and
Then,
Tang
they
clan
would let Yi
changed
Xian
drastically,
and Divine
and
Martial
they hurriedly
City
retreated
exhaust the Order
explosively.
Alliance.
On the other
Tang
hand,
Feng
two
suddenly
women
asked,
were in a
"Are
fierce
there any
battle in
movements
that
from the
pitch black
demons?"
space.
Demons.
Their battle hadn't just caused
Tang
the space
Qin
and the
shook his
surroundings
head.
to shatter apart.
There's no
Even
news.
the islands below them had been transformed
Feng
into powder
nodded
by the
slightly.
aftershock of their attacks.
Let's wait.
Lin Mook
Below,
and the
in
black-robed
Wuyuan.
old man had extremely solemn
this
expressions
moment,
on their
there
faces.
were only a few arrays left in
Because the
Wuyuan.
strengths of the black-dressed
Among
woman
them,
and Zhao
6
Mu
or
weren't
7
ordinary.
Dao realm experts had fallen.
It could be said
and
that
8
these
or
2
9
women
Dao
far
realm
surpassed
swordsmen
everyone
from the
else
sword
present
sect
here.
had fallen.
No,
It could be
there's
said
still
that
Yi
they had
Xian.
suffered heavy losses.
When they thought of Yi Xian,
In the air,
Lin Mook,
the swordsman
the
from the
black-robed
Order
old
Alliance
man,
suddenly
and
walked
the others
towards
looked
Wu Wen.
towards where Yi Xian stood.
At this moment,
Wu Wen's
however,
body
it
had
was empty
unknowingly
now.
appeared with over 10 beams of
fled.
sword light. Their expressions
Facing a Dao
instantly
realm
became
sword
unsightly.
sage, it was still rather
Meanwhile,
strenuous for him.
the black-robed old man
At this
hurriedly
moment,
gazed
the
at
only
the 2 women who
transcendent
were
sword
still
sage,
fighting in the
Yu
distance.
Wuchen, was also being held
Stop
back by
fighting.
2 Dao validation
Yi
experts.
Xian has fled.
Although Yu Wuchen had the
Yi
upper
Xian
hand,
has fled.
he could not do anything
The
to
2
the other
women
party in a
stopped
short
fighting
period
nearby.
of time. When they
Wu
looked
Wen looked
towards where
around.
Yi Xian stood,
At
they
this
frowned
moment,
at the same
the
time.
ground around the martial sect
Meanwhile,
was littered with
the
corpses.
black-robed woman suddenly
Among
pointed
them,
at the
there were
black-robed old
experts
man.
from the older
Why
generation,
didn't you say so
but
earlier?
most of them were from the younger generation.
The black-robed old man's face
Looking
twitched.
at those young faces,
Wu
Wu
Wen
Wen
clenched
clenched
his
his
fists,
and his
How
heart
can I
felt
be
like it was
blamed for
being
this?
cut by a knife.
The black-robed
This was
woman's
what it
face
meant to
turned
be a
livid
weakling.
with rage,
And she grew
in a world
angrier
where
the
the
more
strong
she
were
thought
revered,
about it. The weak could only
Suddenly,
be bullied and
she
slaughtered
charged
by
at the
others.
black-robed old man.
Wu Wen looked at He Liantian, Qin Shan,
The black-robed
and the rest
old
who were
man's
not far
expression
away.
changed drastically when
At
he
this
witnessed
moment,
the scene.
He Liantian, Qin
He
Shan,
didn't have the ability
and the rest
to fight
were
at
only
all.
holding on bitterly.
But it didn't take long
The 2
for
of them
9
were not in good
black-cloaked
condition
figures
and
to
could not
obstruct his
hold on
path.
for much longer.
And then 9 rays of cold
Not
light
only
formed
had
a
many
square
experts
formation
from
that
Wuyuan
enveloped the
died,
black-robed
but many
woman.
of the swordsmen from the
A
sword
moment
sect
of
had also
silence
fallen.
ensued.
There was
Bang.
no hope. An
Wu Wen
enormous
turned to look at
explosion
Yi Ling,
resounded
who
as
was
the
pinned to
square
the wall
formation
with a
shattered,
complicated
and
expression.
the 9 black-clothed figures were
Lass,
blasted
why
back
aren't you
repeatedly.
leaving? Yi
After
Ling
she
clenched her
blasted them
fists
back,
tightly.
the black-robed woman
My brother
intended
said
to
that if
continue
people
attacking.
don't betray me, I won't
But a
betray
moment
them.
later, her brows
Wu Wen
knit together
smiled
slightly,
slightly,
and she raised her head
You
to
have a
look
good
up into
brother.
the sky. As he
An
spoke,
invisible
he
pressure
turned
had
to look at
suddenly
a group of
condensed in
Order
the
Alliance
sky,
members
and at
not
the same
far away
time,
and said
black
softly,
clouds had
"Little
condensed.
fellows, you must remember."
The black-robed woman blinked
Remember
when she
today.
witnessed this scene, and
Remember
then she
how
turned
our
around
Wuyuan
and
was
left.
bullied and humiliated
She
by
was
others
extremely
today.
swift and vanished in
In
the
this
blink of an
world,
eye.
there is no
right or
After
wrong.
She left,
Only the pressure in the sky calmed down, and it didn't take long for it to vanish completely. As soon as he finished returned to normal, a flame suddenly ignited in his body. Had turned around and vanished as well. Soul ignition.
Only the members of the
witnessed
Tang
this
clan
scene,
and Order
the
Alliance
expressions
of
remained
everyone
here.
in Wuyuan instantly
Both
changed
sides
drastically.
had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces.
The eyes of countless
They'd
experts
allowed
from
Yi Xian
Wuyuan
to flee
almost
again.
popped out of their sockets.
Meanwhile, the space
However,
in front of
they were
Lin
being
Mook
held
suddenly
back by
trembled,
the experts
and
from
it
the
didn't
Order
take long
Alliance,
for a voice
and
to
they were
resound.
utterly unable to stop it.
Return to the clan.
Behind Wu Wan,
Return to the
Yiling's
clan.
tears flowed down her cheeks.
Lin Mook led the Tang clan
Grandpa
cavalry
Wu,
behind
Wu
him
Wan
and
said
said softly,
"Lass,
the black-robed
remember,
old man remained
once a
silent for a
person
long
is weak,
time before
they
a
will be
transmission
bullied.
talisman suddenly flew
So,
out from before
you must
him.
become strong."
He gazed at the transmission talisman for a very long time
You can
before
only
he
walk the
finally
path
spoke
after
in a
this
light
by
voice.
yourself.
Guardian
As soon as
Qin
he finished
Tian,
speaking,
I'm useless,
he suddenly
and have failed
transformed
numerous
into a
times.
ball of flames and charged
Guardian,
towards the
please
experts from the
replace me
Order
with someone
Alliance.
else. Nearby,
A moment later,
the old
a
swordsman
voice
from the
suddenly
Order
sounded
Alliance
in front of the
suddenly
black-robed
said,
old man.
"All of you, retreat."
Approved.
As soon as he finished
Hearing
speaking,
this,
the
the
law
black-robed
enforcers
old
behind
man
him immediately
retreated.
felt relieved. The old swordsman
He was a
clenched
little
the sword
afraid
in
of
his
Yi
hand
Xian.
tightly. This
The
time,
sword in his
it was
hand
only
trembled
2
violently,
arms, and it didn't take long
Next
for a
time,
destructive
who
force
knew
to
what would
appear
be
before
broken?
him. The old
Furthermore,
man raised
his
his hand
intuition
and
told him
slashed
that
down.
for a person like Yi Xian,
Slash.
the Order Alliance wouldn't be able
As
to
soon
deal
as the
with him.
sword slashed down,
If they
the
really
cry
wanted
of the
to target
sword shook
Yi
the
Xian,
sky. They
and
should
a
have
wave
sent a
of
sword
supreme
light
expert,
slashed
or
down
even a
towards
star
Wu
lord
himself,
himself,
to directly kill
Rumble.
Yi Xian and eliminate
Rumble.
all future troubles. Explosions
If this
resounded
dragged
incessantly
on,
in
it was
Wuyuan.
tantamount to giving Yi Xian
Under the
time to
gazes
grow.
of countless people, the
And
old
this Yi
swordsman
Xian's
retreated
growth
again
rate was
and very
very
fast. In the end,
It wouldn't
he
be long
retreated
before
until
even
even
a
a
Dao-proving
realm
realm
expert wouldn't be a match for
At
Yi
this
Xian.
moment,
The entire
the
Wuyuan was in a
black-robed old
mess.
man shook his head and sighed.
Wuyuan could be said to have been
Actually,
basically
he
destroyed.
knew
that the higher-ups of the
The
Order
powerful
Alliance were
aftershock
definitely
of the
aware of the
explosion
problems
directly
he was thinking
disrupted
about.
the battlefield and the surroundings.
He also knew that the higher-ups
However,
had their worries.
both sides didn't stop.
They were
and
worried
the Order
that if they were to
Alliance still had
forcefully
the upper
attack Yi
hand,
Xian, then it would cause
Now,
the conflict
it was
between
only
the
a matter
Order
of
Alliance
time
and
before
the Tang
Wuyuan
clan
and
the
the
sword
escalate.
sect were defeated. Outside Shinwu
Because the
City,
Tang clan
the old
would absolutely
swordsman
not
stopped,
allow the
and a
treasure
wisp
to
of blood
fall into the
slowly
hands of
seeped
the
out
Order
from the corner
Alliance.
of his mouth.
Moreover,
In that
it was
instant,
exactly
just now,
because of this
he'd
reason
forcefully
that Yi
resisted
Xian
the
had been
force
able
of
to
Wu Wan's
survive
self-destruction. No
How
matter what,
terrifying
all
was
of
the
this
force
had
of the
nothing to do with
self-destruction
him
of an
now.
expert like Wu Wan.
A short while later,
The injuries
the
that the
black-robed
old swordsman
man
suffered
everyone
could be
away.
said to be very serious.
As for Yi Xian,
But
he didn't
fortunately,
even want to think
with Wu
about Yi
Wan's
Xian.
death,
Yu Wuchen was being
just
held
thinking
back,
about him
and
gave him a
now,
headache.
the great formation of
Tang
Wuyuan
clan,
had basically
Hall
been
of
destroyed.
Heroes.
Right
The
now,
Hall of Heroes
in
was a
Wuyuan,
hall that
only
the
in
Tang
Lanxiao
clan
used to discuss
MOCI,
matters, and Yu Wuchen still had
Ordinary
the strength
disciples
to
of
fight.
the Tang clan didn't
The
have
old
the
swordsman
qualifications
wiped the
to
blood
enter
from
this
the
hall.
corner of his mouth and
In
walked
front of the
towards
Hall of
Wuyuan.
Heroes,
There was a
inside
statue of a
Wuyuan,
woman. Yi Ling was guarding
the
beside
statue was
Lian
vivid and
Wanli.
lifelike, just like
Both
a real
of Lian
person.
Wanli's arms had been
The
chopped
woman
off,
wore a white
and his
floral
injuries
dress
were
and her
extremely
long hair
serious.
draped over her shoulders.
Yi Ling took out a
There were a
huge
few
pile
small
of divine
braids in
crystals
between
and
her
placed
long
them
hair.
in Lian Wanli's arms.
In her right hand,
she held a
Sister
book
Lian,
titled
you,
Time and
you take
Dimensions.
care.
This
After
woman
saying
was the
that,
most
she
stunning
turned and
genius in
walked
the
towards
history of
the
the
old
Tang
swordsman,
clan, Mu Nanji.
Behind her,
Lian
she was
Wanli
also
said
the
weakly,
first female
"Don't
head
go."
of the Tang clan in history.
Yi Ling shook her head.
Logically speaking,
At this
her
moment,
surname
her
should be
tears
Tang.
were no longer flowing.
However,
She had
she
always
slowly
insisted
walked
that her
towards the
surname
old
was Mu.
swordsman.
The Tang
In
clan
midair,
members didn't
Qin
dare to
Tian
disobey
glanced
her
at Yi
and
Ling,
could only
but he
obey
still
her
didn't
orders.
make a move.
Below the
On the
statue
ground
of the
below,
woman,
there
Yi
was a
Ling
sentence.
stopped when she
Who
arrived
said
at
that
where
women
women
were
had been
inferior to
standing.
men.
She
It
looked
was
in
because
front
of
her,
this
and
sentence
tears
that the status of
unknowingly
women in the
flowed
Tang
from her
clan
eyes.
had changed greatly.
She'd really treated
In the
Wu
Tang
Wan like
clan,
family.
women had the same authority
At this
and
moment,
status
the
as
old
men.
swordsman suddenly pressed his
education,
fingers together and
cultivation,
pointed
and
forward,
resources
causing
that
a
only
ray
men
of
could
sword light
enjoy
to
in the
shoot
past
out.
were also available to
Yi Ling
women.
suddenly raised her head
In
and
fact,
swung her hands
women could
forward.
also become the heir or the head of the family.
Moreover,
There was
strands
no
of
such
energy
thing as
swept out
status
from
in
the
the Tang
center of her
clan.
palms.
If the son of
However,
the clan
these
leader
two
wasn't
strands
good
of
enough,
energy had
he
only
would
just
still be
appeared when they were
eliminated.
directly slashed into
If the
pieces
son of
by
a
the ray
servant
of
was
sword
strong
light.
enough, he could also
In the
be
next
promoted.
moment, the ray of sword
In
light
short,
pierced her
if
left
you can
shoulder,
do it,
and
then
the
do it.
powerful force dragged her
The
backwards.
current patriarch of the Tang
In clan.
In the end,
Tang
the
Yan
sword pinned her
was
to
once
the top
the
of
illegitimate
palace,
son of a
and
down-and-out
disciple
disciple
of the
Tang
another
clan,
sword
and a
silently
maidservant
arrived and pierced her right
The Hall of
shoulder.
Heroes was usually empty
Just like
because
that,
the patriarch
Yi Ling
would
was
only
pinned
gather
to
the
the top
experts
of
of
the
the
Tang
Tang
clan
clan
to
to discuss
discuss
important
and her
matters
clothes
within
had
the hall.
already been dyed red with
Today,
blood.
there were over 30
Yi
people
Ling gritted
standing
her
within the
teeth.
hall. Even though
The
she was
weakest
in
amongst
pain,
them was at the
she
Dao
didn't make a
realm.
sound.
Some were
In the
old,
distance,
some were
the
young,
old swordsman
and there
was
were
about
even
to
many
make a
women.
move when Yi Ling suddenly
Tang
closed
Qing
her
was
eyes
amongst
and
them as
roared
well.
furiously.
Brother.
The hall was very silent.
Buzz.
A
The
long
cry
time
of a
passed
sword
before a
suddenly
figure
resounded
suddenly
in the
appeared
sky.
within the hall.
In midair,
Everyone
Qing
present
Tian's
bowed in
eyes
unison.
narrowed slightly, and he
Greetings,
slowly clenched his
patriarch.
right fist.
It was the
In the
patriarch
dark,
of the
all
Tang
the
clan.
Tang clan's
Tang
powerhouses
Yan looked in front of Yi Ling.
one of the 6 great experts
A man
of the Tang
had appeared
clan.
there at some point. Tang Yen said,
"The man was
let's
Yi
put the matter
Xian.
of the Qin clan aside
Qin
for now."
Tian frowned slightly
Today,
when he saw Yi
we'll
Xian.
discuss Yi Xian. He hadn't expected
Perhaps
Yi
everyone
Xian
here
to
doesn't
appear
know
in the
him
open
very
instead
well.
of hiding in the dark to
Tang
assassinate
Feng,
him. Tell us about him. This had exceeded his
A
expectations.
young man walked out from below.
However, this was naturally a good thing for him. He was the ninth young master of the Tang clan. He would have been a little afraid. And he was one of the contenders for the position of heir. If Yi Xian had come out in the open, his combat power was at most equivalent and then he said, knowing Yi Xian was born in Qingxingzi clan. Yi Xian walked to the front of the dilapidated palace. His mother is a daughter of the Duga clan from the upper dimensions. When he saw Yi Ling, and his father's identity is unknown, by 2 swords and covered in blood, he came into contact with the sword Dao at the age of 18. The next moment, and he became a sword immortal at the age of 19. I'm late. There's a mysterious person standing behind him, and his identity and strength are unknown. Yi Xian clenched his strengths are extremely high natural talent in the sword Dao. Meticulous thinking. He clenched decisive so tightly that his nails dug into his palms, to his friends, causing blood to flow, and not inflexible. Tremble. He does what others don't, whole and his body began to tremble violently. When he spoke up to hear, the blood in his body began to slowly boil. His weaknesses are at the same loyal time, to his friends, rays of red light gradually appeared around and he cares too much about his younger sister and friends. Self-blame. If my Tang clan can't defeat him head-on, most of it was then we can attack his friends and family. Yi Xian had never been so angry before, and crush him with a single strike. The intensity of his anger was rarely seen. Under the influence of this anger, Chapter 5, the blood in his body boiled more and more. Everyone and the red light around his body silently at Tang Feng. Not only Tang Feng, but his hair also began to slowly change color. My Tang clan is a large clan after all. Yi Xian's expression suddenly contorted, if we can't deal with an extreme pain and target his friends and younger sister, then it would be beneath he felt like he was about to explode. Meanwhile, a man walked over from the nearby, swordsman frowned, and he smiled and said, he was about to make a move when Qin Tian suddenly said, a man should naturally not be bothered by the trifles. Going berserk? My Tang clan has been able to stand until now not because of benevolence or so-called morality. Yi Xian's mouth was dripping with blood. Everyone looked at the man who spoke. Critical point. He was the second young master of the Tang critical point, but he was so close. He was also one of the people fighting for the position of heir of the Tang clan. If he couldn't break through this point, he would undoubtedly die. Second brother is in the air. Qin Tian shook his head. My Tang clan is a large clan. If we can't deal with Yi Xian and target his younger sister and friends, I didn't expect the genius swordsman to force himself to death. Aren't we afraid of being ridiculed by the world? At this moment, Yi Ling shook his head and smiled. Brother, they're bullying me. Why should the strong care about what the weak think? Beat them to death. Would an elephant care about what the ants think? Yi Xian opened his eyes abruptly. Tang Feng smiled. His eyes were bloodshot. Second brother's attitude and thoughts. Almost at the same time. However, his black hair instantly turned blood red. Tang Yi smiled. A ray of red light shot into the sky. Decision. The sky was looked at Tang Yen. Meanwhile, Tang Yen looked at Tang Qing. Qing, what do you think? Chapter 581. Everyone looked at Tang Qing. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed. They were rather surprised. In the air, Qin Tian looked at Tang Qing as well, and he still had a smile on his face. His face was very pale. Tang Yi closed his eyes slowly, and no one knew what he was thinking. This is bloodline awakening. Tang Qing suddenly said, the Tang clan knows nothing about the person behind without saying a word. Some of the people here frowned when they heard this. You opened the person behind Yi Xian. After a moment glanced at them and said, why did that treasure fall into Yi Xian's hands? No wonder. Who is Yi Xian's father? In the Wuyu and below, powerful auras were constantly emitted from Yi Xian's without a trace that day. At the same time, the experts his expression was extremely savage. Who could have instantly wiped them out? Yi Xian was like a wild beast that had gone berserk. Was that person a single person or a power? Yi Xian stared at the swordsman from the Order Alliance in the distance. Tang Yen suddenly said, his eyes were blood red, sending chills down one's spine. Tang Qing nodded and said, my Tang clan is one of the strongest powers in the world, but I feel that we shouldn't underestimate anyone even more. In his eyes. Especially the sword in his hand trembled slightly. Such a precious treasure was actually in his hand. Yi Xian suddenly roared. This matter itself was strange. Dog. In the next moment, this person has an evil beast flashed across an evil beast from the era of the god race. Buzz. Evil beast. The sword hum tore through the sky and shook the clouds. An old man suddenly asked, Yi Xian an evil beast from the god race era? He instantly arrived in front of the old man. I saw this beast when I was with him. He did not use his flying sword. This beast is indeed an evil beast of the god race. He drew his sword to determine life and death. Tang Feng suddenly drawing his sword to determine life and death. Are you talking about the demonic beast beside him in the never-ending starfield? The power of Yi Xian's sword was on a completely different level from the previous drawing sword to determine life and death. The swordsman's expression instantly changed when he drew his sword. I can't even recognize this beast's true origin. His eyes were filled with shock. Tang Qing looked at Tang Yen. Without any time to think, the swordsman stabbed forward. I think that we should wait and see for now.
The sword moved like lightning and a cold gleam appeared. The two swords clashed head-on in the most clan that wants that treasure. The Order Alliance also wants it. Even the demon clan might have secretly made a move. The sword in the swordsman's hand, the disciple of the southern sex martial master. At the same time, he was also looking for several hundred zhang away. All these signs show that someone is more anxious. The space was torn inch by inch. At this moment, it was extremely terrifying. The first move will force Yi Xian to reveal his trump card, or the person instantly changed. The second reason is that no matter who obtains the hidden Tang clan, they will become the target of everyone. Even if it's our Tang clan, once we obtain that treasure, we will definitely force the Law and Order Alliance to ally with the monster swordsman's sword. Because they will definitely not allow us to become the strongest clan in the world. With the old swordsman's expression instantly turned ferocious. At this time, he ignored the injuries on his body and used both his hands to guide Rebirth. A Tang family elder looked at Tang Qing. But if we wait and see, countless sword-like falls into the hands of the Order Alliance. Yi Xian. Tang Qing said softly, what the elder is worried about should be what all of you are worried about. In the next moment, we can let the clan leader restrain the Astral Lord. As he was pushed back, the Astral Lord does not move, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The clan leader will not move. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when the Order Alliance wants to obtain the treasure, then they will definitely have to send someone to kill Yi Xian. Suddenly roared furiously, and then he raised his sword and slashed down. There shouldn't be anyone in the Order Alliance who is 100% confident in killing Yi Xian. Qin Tian spread open his right palm, once the Order Alliance wants the treasure, then they will definitely have to fight Yi Xian to the death. Rumble. At that time, the White Tang clan can just watch from the shadows and act when it's necessary. Qin Tian's figure instantly retreated by over 1 kilometer. What Big Sister means is that we won't make the first move, but we won't give up either. Yi Xian had already appeared in front of the swordsman. Whoever makes the first move, and if Yi Xian didn't even have the time to react, then we'll act Yi Xian's sword nailed him to the ground. Right? The swordsman stared fixedly at Yi Xian. The more we want to obtain that treasure, the calmer we have to be. When she spoke up, these words were spoken, she paused for a moment before she continued. Qin Tian ancestor Nanji once said that it's easy to conquer a country, but it's difficult to defend it. He'd noticed that Yi Xian was a sword current status wasn't easy to obtain back, so we can't take a single wrong step. Because a single step might lead to eternal damnation. Qin Tian was extremely terrified when he thought about it. She looked at Tang Yen. Yi Xian paid no attention to them, and he walked over to the swordsman. Everything is up to you. The old man was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly stabbed his sword into the old man's throat. Meanwhile, Tang Yi suddenly looked at Tang Qing. What Big Sister means is that not only can we not make the first move, we have to stop the Order Alliance from obtaining that treasure. In an instant, the old swordsman's body was cut into pieces. In next to no time, only a pool of blood and bits of flesh remained inside Yi Xian. Qin Tian's face was gloomy to the extreme when he witnessed this scene. Tang Qing chuckled. I'm a member of the Tang clan. He suddenly turned around. As soon as she finished speaking, in the next moment, she fell silent. A ray of red light flashed, and the expressions of the nearby law enforcers changed drastically. Tang Yi glanced at Tang Qing and didn't say another word. The law enforcers didn't fall into disorder, then he could be targeted, and 2 of them charged directly at Yi Xian. It was extremely unwise to do so at a time like this. Their heads flew soundlessly into the air before they could even get close to Yi Xian. We'll do as Tang Qing says. Flying swords. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian's flying swords were so fast, but it didn't take even a knowledge realm powerhouse couldn't stop them. There's something strange about the Qin clan. Yi Xian stopped, and he suddenly stretched out his left hand. I'll deal with it myself. In the next moment, the blood on the ground suddenly trembled, and he vanished. The blood condensed into along with Tang Yi under everyone's gazes. The others left successively. Qin Tian's expression changed drastically. As soon as Tang Qing left the main hall, Tang Yi's voice suddenly came from behind her. The law enforcers immediately retreated. Are you really not angry at all when the clan abandoned you? Swords were even faster. Tang Qing stopped and said softly, of course I'm angry. Hiss. But I'm more angry at myself. Countless blood swords shuttled through the battlefield, the clan will definitely protect me at all costs. The heads of 9 law enforcers flew into the air. Tang Yi smiled. Big sister, as for the rest of the law enforcers, they had all retreated from Wuxia. Tang Qing said softly, second kill. There's only one heir apparent. In the sky, Qin Tian's expression was terrifyingly gloomy. However, he didn't expect we might just be whetstones wasn't just a sword saint, but he had also awakened his bloodline. Big sister, you're trying to tell me that you're not my enemy. Yi Xian was now. Tang Qing smiled. Qin Tian had the intention to retreat. I'm just reminding you. Yi Xian suddenly soared into the statue of Mu Nanji in front of him and said softly, countless flying swords shot towards the keepers of order. As the expressions of the law enforcers changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, in the hall, and they joined forces to resist the statue of Mu Nanji. Qin Tian raised his head and looked at the statue in front of him.
Tang Qing fell into deep thought. On an island in the concealing sky entered his mind. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in front of a fruit tree. Qin Tian's expression was slightly ferocious. At this moment, he still had some lingering fear. Lost over 80% of their Dao woman's strength was really too strong. Now, we just have to deal with Yi Xian, and then our order was also be able to take control of Divine Martial City. Fortunately, the two of them were people with explosive tempers. Then all our efforts will be for naught. They would start fighting at the slightest disagreement. His current strength has surpassed the Dao validation. He wouldn't have stood a chance. Do you know that? At this moment, the World Prison Pagoda appeared in front of Yi Xian. His bloodline has just been activated, so how long can it last? Xiao Linger appeared beside him. If we don't kill him with all our might, she glanced at the World Prison Pagoda, that we're going to allow him to continue growing? It said, why did you run? In the void, Elder Ku should capture her and bring her in. Moreover, law enforcers were dying incessantly in the distance. Xiao Linger presently, anyone who obstructed Yi Xian would simply die. Yi Xian pointed at the World Prison Pagoda. All those who died in his hands died. Why doesn't it dare to come out and fight? At this moment, Xiao Linger looked at the World Prison Pagoda, and a moment later, she looked at Yi Xian. It said, you're good at lying. Are we going to let him grow into an extraordinary sword saint? Trick her into coming in. At that time, Yi Xian almost fainted. It's better to sacrifice a little now than to leave behind a great calamity in the future. Did it have the intelligence of a 3-year-old? After a moment of silence, a voice resounded in the sky. Kill. Yi Xian was about to resounded, but a dozen powerful auras suddenly charged down from the sky. Then, in the darkness far away, Tang Feng frowned. It was that black-dressed woman. Tang Qing was about to speak when Tang Yi said with a smile, why should we attack now? Let's see what Yi Xian's limit is. Tang Feng nodded, that's true. Whether Yi Xian is dead or alive, he should be able to exhaust the Order Alliance. At this point, he looked at Tang Qing, what do you think, big sister? Tang Qing was expressionless, whatever you say. Tang Feng smiled faintly and turned his head to look down. In addition to the dozen newly joined Knowledge Realm powerhouses, there were also 2 Dao validation powerhouses, and these 2 people directly blocked Yi Xian. However, what made everyone speechless was that these 2 Dao validation powerhouses were actually suppressed by Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Qin Tian slowly clenched his right hand and turned to look at Yi Ling below. Capture that little girl first. Capture Yi Ling. Yi Ling was Yi Xian's nemesis. As long as Yi Ling was caught, Yi Xian would definitely be captured. As soon as Qin Tian's voice fell, several figures directly rushed towards Yi Ling below. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was fighting with the 2 Dao validation powerhouses, suddenly slashed them back with his sword. He held the soul-suppressing sword in his hand and suddenly pointed to the right, split. As soon as he said this, the Knowledge Realm powerhouse who was rushing towards Yi Ling stopped in place and then fell straight down. His soul dissipated. At this moment, Yi Xian pointed his sword in the air again. Another Knowing Realm powerhouse fell. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was flabbergasted by this scene. Qin Tian had a look of disbelief on his face as well. What the hell is going on? In secret, the expressions of Tang Qing and the others became solemn. Even Tang Yi had a trace of seriousness and vigilance in his eyes. Every single one of Yi Xian's trump cards was slightly terrifying. How many more does he have? Down below, the Dao Knowledge State experts who had not yet reached Yi Ling all fell to the ground silently. Their souls had vanished, and only their bodies remained. At this moment, the keepers of order in the surroundings were slightly panicking. After Yi Xian killed the powerhouses that were charging towards Yi Ling, he turned to look at the 2 people in front of him. At this moment, not only did his aura not weaken, it was constantly growing. Especially the murderous intent on his body, it was so strong that no one dared to approach him. At this moment, Yi Xian held the soul-suppressing sword tightly in his right hand, and his body was enveloped by a bloody glow. His blood was boiling, and an endless stream of bloodline power spread throughout his body. As this power filled his body, he felt full of strength. Boundless power. This power didn't belong to him, but the power of his bloodline. Of course, strictly speaking, it was also his own power. After all, it was his bloodline. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Nearby, the expressions of the 2 Dao Proving Realm powerhouses changed drastically, and they hurriedly attacked together. Rumble. Along with an explosion, the two Dao-proving realm powerhouses were forced back hundreds of meters by Yi Xian. As soon as they stopped, two flying swords silently appeared in front of them. Quick! This was the first thought that came to their minds. They joined their hands together and caught the two swords at the same time. But at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of one of the Dao-proving realm powerhouses. In the next moment, he drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. The Dao-proving realm powerhouse's pupils constricted when the sword slashed down, and he held onto Yi Xian's flying sword with both hands as he raised it horizontally to block. The sword descended. Bang! The Dao-proving realm powerhouse was directly blasted hundreds of meters away, and as soon as he stopped, a blood-red flying sword pierced through the center of his forehead. A Dao-proving realm powerhouse had fallen. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. He'd killed a Dao-proving realm powerhouse while fighting two by himself. At this moment, there was disbelief in his eyes, and there was also fear, deep fear. Suddenly, the space in the sky above Wuyuan cracked open, and then a figure flashed out like a bolt of lightning towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian drew his sword and slashed down. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian retreated hundreds of meters explosively, and as soon as he stopped, a wisp of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. In the darkness nearby, Tang Yi looked at the person in front of Yi Xian and said softly, "Wang Jitsa." Tang Qing and Tang Feng's expressions instantly changed when they heard Tang Yi. The sage of calligraphy, Wang Jitsa. The second on the Dao ranking of the previous generation. P.S. You scolded me at the second watch, and you loved me at the third watch. What about the fourth watch? Chapter 582. He was ranked second on the previous Dao rankings. The Dao rankings were updated every 30 years. There were a total of 10 people on the previous Dao rankings, and Wang Jitsa was one of them. Moreover, he was ranked second. Moreover, Wang Jitsa was one of the 9 saints. Besides the unknown divine kingdom, there were 6 supreme experts in the chaotic universe. They were the Order Alliance's Master of the Star, the Southern Sect's Martial Master, the Tang clan's Patriarch, the Monster King of the Demon Race, and 2 others who were unknown. Besides these 6 supreme experts, there were 9 other saints. Wang Jitsa was one of them, the Saint of Calligraphy. Moreover, he was an extraordinary saint of calligraphy. Strictly speaking, Yu Wuchen could be ranked amongst them as well after he attained the extraordinary Sword Saint realm. After all, ordinary Dao substantiation realm experts couldn't compare to them. Surmounting their realms of cultivation to challenge them? It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Because all of them were experts who could surmount their realms of cultivation to do so all those years ago. In the field, Qin Tian bowed slightly to Wang Ziji, Wang Sheng. Wang Jitsa nodded, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. He sized up Yi Xian and said, "The power of bloodline." Suddenly, a sword howl resounded from afar. Wang Jitsa looked up and saw a Dao substantiation realm expert descend slowly from the sky. It was the expert from the Order Alliance who'd fought Yu Wuchen earlier. Even though 2 Dao substantiation realm experts could keep Yu Wuchen busy for a while, they couldn't defeat Yu Wuchen. The remaining Dao substantiation realm expert didn't attack again, and he retreated instead. Yu Wuchen didn't chase after him. He descended in front of Wang Jitsa and gazed coldly at Wang Jitsa. The latter shook his head, "I'm not your match." As soon as he finished speaking, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yu Wuchen like a ghost. The old man wore a tight-fitting robe, had a thin figure, and had his right hand behind his back. His gaze was sharp like a blade. He was powerful. Yu Wuchen's expression turned solemn. The old man's strength was definitely not inferior to Wang Jitsa, but he didn't know who he was. At this moment, Wang Ziji, who was not far away, looked at Yi Xian. "Come, let me see how many trump cards you still have." Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, the blood in his body was still boiling, and the power was still increasing. However, that power was eroding his consciousness. Gradually, Yi Xian's consciousness became more and more muddled. Slaughter. There was only one thought left in his mind. Slaughter. As everyone watched, Yi Xian walked towards Wang Jitsa with the soul-subduing sword in his hand. At this moment, the soul-subduing sword had actually turned blood-red. Wang Jitsa calmly looked at Yi Xian. He did not look down on Yi Xian. Of course, he did not pay much attention to Yi Xian either. From the beginning until now, he had seen too many geniuses and killed too many geniuses. Confidence. His strength allowed him to be so confident. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up. In the blink of an eye, he arrived above Wang Jitsa's head and slashed down with his sword. Draw the sword and decide life and death. His sword carried a peerlessly domineering aura. It seemed like this attack could kill anyone. Countless people in the surroundings sensed this aura. Wang Jitsa had an emotionless expression on his face as he stood below Yi Xian. He flicked his sleeve, and space trembled slightly. In the next moment. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying thousands of feet away along with his sword. After he blasted Yi Xian flying, Wang Jitsa suddenly made a grabbing motion with his right hand. As soon as he did that, a ray of light that had suddenly appeared in his grasp, and then he clenched his right fist lightly. Bang! The ray of light was instantly blasted into pieces. Wang Jitsa gazed at Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished once more, and then a ray of blood-red light tore through the surroundings. Hiss! Ear-piercing explosions resounded incessantly like firecrackers. Meanwhile, Wang Jitsa took a step forward and tapped his finger forward. The space around his finger trembled slightly, and a powerful force suddenly blocked the blood-red sword light. After a moment of silence, the blood-red sword light exploded, and in that instant, a sword slashed down from above his head. Wang Jitsa didn't dodge, and he met it with his fist instead. Bang! At the instant that Yi Xian's sword slashed against Wang Jitsa's fist, the space and the surroundings trembled violently before cracking apart. It was also at this instant that Wang Jitsa's brows suddenly knit together. In the next moment, he flashed over 100 back, and then he tapped the center of his forehead with his finger. In an instant, his soul calmed down. In that instant just now, something had actually happened to his soul. Wang Jitsa raised his head and looked towards his opponent. Suddenly, a flying sword soundlessly slashed towards him. He pressed his fingers together and clamped down on the flying sword, and then he exerted force lightly. Bang! The flying sword shattered. But it didn't take long for countless rays of blood-red light to suddenly slash down towards him. The dense expanse of flying swords instantly drowned Wang Jitsa beneath them. At this moment, Wang Jitsa took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. Bang! It was merely an ordinary punch, yet the rays of light were obliterated. It was a crushing defeat. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian and Wang Jitsa. It was undeniable that Yi Xian was very strong indeed, but the gap between him and Wang Jitsa was too huge. Perhaps Yi Xian wouldn't be inferior to Wang Jitsa in the future, but Yi Xian wasn't a match for Wang Jitsa at all. Wang Jitsa walked slowly towards Yi Xian. Needless to say, you really aren't bad. Of course, that's exactly why you must die here today. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly clenched his right fist, and then a strand of energy silently condensed. In the distance, Yu Wuchen's face darkened. At this moment, he naturally wanted to help, but the petite old man's divine sense had locked onto him. As soon as he made a move, the petite old man would definitely act as well. At this moment, Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Ling, who wasn't far away. Yi Ling didn't cry. She just looked at Yi Xian and said, "Brother, I'm not afraid." "Really, I'm not afraid at all." Yi Xian's hand trembled slightly. He grinned, but it was a somewhat sinister smile. It's all right. Brother is here." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and charged towards Wang Jitsa. Bang! A powerful force swept out from Yi Xian's body. At this moment, he didn't hold anything back. Dragon Soul Power. Dragon Power. Mo-Ku Power. Divine Blood Technique. Coupled with the power of his bloodline, the aura that Yi Xian erupted with could only be described as terrifying. This had surpassed the aura of a Dao validation expert. As he charged towards Wang Jitze, the aura on Yi Xian's body grew stronger and stronger. Soon, he arrived in front of Wang Jitze and slashed down with his sword. This sword contained far too much. Of course, the most important thing was his conviction. At this moment, his younger sister was behind him. If he retreated, his younger sister would definitely die. He, Yi Xian, had nowhere to retreat. Since he couldn't retreat, then he would advance. He would carve out a path. Draw the sword to decide life and death. With this sword, Yi Xian's killing intent was unprecedentedly strong. At this moment, Wang Jitze took a step forward and met the sword with his fist. As everyone watched, Yi Xian's sword slashed down fiercely. Bang! As a deafening explosion rang out, Yi Xian was instantly sent flying along with his sword. However, Wang Jitze was also forced to retreat a good 300 meters. The expressions of everyone in the dark changed at the sight of this. Yi Xian had actually pushed Wang Jitze back with a single strike of his sword. Wang Jitze glanced at his palm. There was a deep sword scar on his palm. A scar. Wang Jitze raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yi Xian was walking towards him again. At this moment, Yi Xian seemed to have gone mad. His expression was savage and warped, and his body emanated a strange red glow. He seemed like a wild beast that had gone berserk. Suddenly, Yi Xian vanished on the spot. Hiss! A ray of blood-red light flashed, and everywhere it passed, space was torn apart like fragile paper. Wang Jitze's eyes narrowed slightly as he stood in front of Yi Xian, and a strand of killing intent flashed through them. In the next moment, he charged forward swiftly and smashed his fist down. Rumble. The space around them suddenly collapsed and fell into pitch-black darkness. A few breaths of time later. Bang! Another explosion resounded, and then a figure retreated explosively. It was Yi Xian. However, Wang Jitze had also retreated several dozen meters. After Yi Xian stopped, blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth once more. Not only that, but his entire body had also split open and blood flowed out incessantly. However, the blood was quickly absorbed by him. In the distance, Wang Jitze also had 2 sword scars on his body. He had been injured by Yi Xian. Qin Tian's expression darkened at the sight of this, and no one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Tang Feng said softly in the dark, "This Yi Xian is probably reaching his limit." Tang Qing said, "Should we make a move?" Tang Yi shook his head, "It's not time yet. If we make a move now, we'll have to pay a huge price." Tang Feng nodded, "That skinny old man and Wang Jitze. Just these 2 alone are enough to make us lose many Tang clan knights." As he spoke, he looked down at Yi Xian and said, "Let's continue waiting and see if he has any other trump cards." Tang Qing did not say anything. She just looked down, and no one knew what she was thinking. Below, in Wuyuan, Wang Jitze looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, his eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. In the next moment, he directly rushed toward Yi Xian. He was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not choose to retreat. Instead, he held his sword with both hands and slashed forward. Qi! The blood-red sword Qi slashed to the end. As Wang Jitze punched out, the blood-red sword Qi directly exploded. At the same time, a powerful force directly engulfed Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian brandished his sword rapidly. Streaks of blood-red sword lights kept striking out. However, Wang Jitze's strength was too strong. Therefore, he kept being forced to retreat. Meanwhile, Qin Tian's figure suddenly shook, and then he flashed towards Yi Ling. Obviously, he wanted to take down Yi Ling first. Not far away, when Yi Xian saw this, his expression instantly turned savage. In the next moment, he directly ignored Wang Jitsa and his figure trembled, appearing in front of Yi Ling. When he saw Yi Xian, Qin Tian's expression changed, and he immediately wanted to retreat. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared, "Those who hurt my sister, die." As soon as he spoke, he suddenly disappeared, and in the next moment, he appeared in front of Qin Tian. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Buzz! A blood-red sword she directly slashed down. Bang! Qin Tian was sent flying in an instant. The moment he was sent flying, a ray of sword light pierced through his forehead. Chi! Blood splattered. In the battlefield, Yi Xian looked around angrily and roared like a wild beast, "Who else?" At this moment, the blood in his body completely boiled, and waves of killing intent surged out like a tide. In the distance, Wang Jitsa stared fixedly at Yi Xian. What bloodline? The more abnormal, the stronger. Chapter 583. He killed Qin Tian in an instant. Needless to say, Yi Xian's attack had shocked everyone. Even someone as powerful as Wang Jitsa was slightly shocked. Qin Tian was a Dao Validation Realm expert, and he wasn't just any Dao Validation Realm expert. However, he was killed by Yi Xian with just 2 attacks. Moreover, the aura that Yi Xian exuded was even stronger than before. Especially in that instant, the power of Yi Xian's attack wasn't just a little bit stronger than before. After Yi Xian killed Qin Tian with a single attack, the surroundings suddenly fell silent. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian, this extremely abnormal young man. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly clenched his left hand. In the blink of an eye, the blood on the ground in the Wuyuan suddenly trembled. Then, the blood actually transformed into blood swords under everyone's gazes. The surrounding experts of the Order Alliance started to retreat slowly. At the same time, their expressions were extremely cautious. They were extremely fearful of Yi Xian, especially Yi Xian's flying swords. Ordinary people couldn't stop them at all. Wang Jitsa looked at Yi Xian. A black book had appeared in the latter's palm. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pointed at Wang Jitsa from afar. Slash! In an instant, thousands of blood swords suddenly shot towards Wang Jitsa. Almost every single one of them could easily tear space apart. The reason why these flying swords were so powerful was because they were enhanced by the dragon's soul energy. For the first time, a trace of seriousness appeared in Wang Jitsa's eyes. He suddenly flipped open the black book in his hand as he looked at the countless blood swords. In the next moment, he started chanting silently. Countless black ancient characters suddenly flew out from the book, and they directly flew towards Yi Xian's blood swords. Chi 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 chi, the sound of corrosion resounded incessantly. Under everyone's gazes, the blood swords disappeared one after another. In the sky, Tang Yi said softly, "The Book of Holy Words." Tang Feng looked at Tang Yi and asked, "What is the Book of Holy Words?" Tang Yi said softly, "In Wang Jitsa's hands, the power of a peak stage creation treasure has increased by at least 50%. I'm afraid it can be compared to a Dao realm treasure." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. "Let's see how he'll deal with this." As soon as Tang Yi finished speaking, a throne suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The God King's throne. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian suddenly sat down and clenched his left hand. In an instant, all the spiritual qi within a radius of 1,000 li was absorbed cleanly, and the black ancient characters in front of Wang Jitsa also disappeared without a trace at this moment. Countless blood swords instantly drowned Wang Jitsa. Rumble. Wang Jitsa was pushed almost 300 m back before Yi Xian. At this moment, even though the blood swords had vanished, there were actually over a dozen scars all over his body. Everyone's gazes descended onto Yi Xian, who sat on the God King's throne. To be more precise, they were looking at the God King's throne that Yi Xian sat on. A Dao realm treasure. Even great powers like the Tang clan and Order Alliance didn't have many such treasures. In fact, they could be counted on one hand. However, Yi Xian actually possessed a Dao realm treasure. Countless strands of spiritual qi converged madly towards Yi Xian, and they were about to surge towards the God King's throne. However, Yi Xian suddenly started to forcefully absorb the spiritual qi. He desperately needed the spiritual qi right now. The God King's throne was just about to resist when the energy of Yi Xian's bloodline suppressed the God King's throne, and then countless strands of spiritual qi instantly surged into Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian greedily took a deep breath. At this moment, he felt like he had an inexhaustible supply of spiritual qi within him. Wang Jitze glanced at the Book of Holy Wisdom that stood before Yi Xian. At this moment, the Book of Holy Wisdom had lost its effect. Because activating the Book of Holy Wisdom required a huge amount of spiritual qi, and all the spiritual qi in an area of 500 kilometers had vanished. How do I activate it? Moreover, all the spiritual qi had been absorbed by Yi Xian. Wang Jitze gazed at Yi Xian. Suddenly, Yi Xian vanished. Wang Jitze's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he vanished as well. It didn't take long for Wang Jitze and Yi Xian to enter into battle once more. Wang Jitze had the upper hand, but Yi Xian gave off the feeling that he was getting stronger as the battle went on. Especially his flying sword, even Wang Jitze didn't dare to be careless. Meanwhile, the rest of the experts didn't move at all. After Yi Xian killed a batch of the law enforcers, the Law Alliance no longer had an overwhelming advantage. Especially now, there was still Mo Xia and Enlanxiu on Wu Yuan's side. The strength of these two people was something that the Law Alliance's law enforcers feared. In the dark, Tang Yi smiled. It's a deadlock. Tang Feng nodded. If this deadlock continues, it will be more advantageous for us. As for the Law Alliance, Tang Qing said softly, the Law Alliance can either retreat or send more experts. Tang Yi smiled. I hope that they will send more experts. Because this way, we can see if Yi Xian has any other trump cards. Tang Qing's expression was calm, and he didn't say anything. Tang Yi looked down at Yi Xian and smiled. Fortunately, my Tang clan didn't force Yi Xian to his death. Otherwise, we would be the ones to suffer losses. Tang Feng nodded. This person is so strong. We and the Law Alliance have greatly underestimated him. Tang Yi was about to speak when he suddenly looked up at the sky. Somewhere in the sky, the space suddenly split open. In the next moment, two old men walked out. Seeing these two people, Tang Yi's expression immediately became somewhat solemn. Experts above the Dao validation realm. These two people might not be stronger than Wang Jitze. However, in this situation, the Law Alliance had two more experts of this level. It was almost certain that they would win. At this moment, another three men in black appeared behind the old man. These three men in black were all at the Dao Confirmation Realm. Dao Confirmation Realm Law Enforcers. 5 people. In the dark, Tang Yi said softly, it's over. In the sky, the two old men and the 3 Dao Confirmation Realm Law Enforcers suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, several powerful auras charged directly at Yi Ling. Their target was Yi Ling. Sensing this, Yi Xian, who was fighting Wang Jitze, suddenly turned around and returned to Yi Xian. Looking at the 5 people charging at him, Yi Xian roared and slashed forward. Buzz! With the sound of a sword, a blood-red sword gleam surged out. However, the blood-red sword gleam was instantly shattered by the 5 people. Not only that, but Wang Jitze also charged at him. 6 pinnacle experts. Behind Yi Xian, Yi Ling suddenly walked to his side. She held Yi Xian's hand and cried silently. Brother, am I too useless? No matter how hard I try, I can't help you. When Yi Xian, who was already acting abnormally, heard Yi Ling's words, his hands trembled slightly. In the next moment, he said painfully, Don't be afraid. I'm here. As soon as he said that, he stomped his right foot and the great Dao Law suddenly appeared between his brows. In an instant, the power of the earth and the power of the earth veins in the surroundings converged toward Yi Xian like a tide. At that moment, a sheathed sword suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The sword trembled violently as if it wanted Yi Xian to pull it out. Because it knew that this was the only time Yi Xian could pull it out. This was because Yi Xian not only had the power of the dragon's soul and the power of the bloodline, but he also had the power of the earth and the power of the earth veins. This was Yi Xian's strongest moment. Looking at the group of people charging at him, Yi Xian did not hesitate at all. He grabbed the hilt of the sword and pulled it out. Buzz. The hum of a sword soared into the sky. A sword appeared in Yi Xian's hand. The moment this sword appeared, countless dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky above the divine martial arts city. In the next moment, bolts of purple lightning flashed continuously within the clouds, and waves of pressure from the heavens and the earth pressed down on the ground. Purple divine lightning. Wang Jitze and the others stopped in their tracks, their eyes filled with shock. This purple divine lightning was the legendary divine lightning. How could it appear? One must know that this type of divine lightning would usually only appear when an extremely heaven-defying genius broke through. For example, in the records, it had only appeared when Gu Tatian, Zhou Yafu of Wuyuan, and Mu Nanji of the Tang clan broke through. Chapter 584. The Sword. The sword in Yi Xian's hand trembled violently, and as the sword trembled, the terrifying pressure in the sky above the divine martial arts city became even stronger, as if it was about to crush the earth. The pressure was so strong that even Dao realm experts were on the verge of being unable to endure it. It was the true might of the heavens and the earth. Everyone was staring at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. What sort of sword is that? At this moment, the sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly soared into the sky and pierced through the clouds. In the next moment, under everyone's gaze, the sword directly pierced into the layer of black clouds. A breath of time later. Bang! Suddenly, an enormous bang resounded in the sky, and then the countless layers of clouds dispersed before the gazes of everyone. Moreover, the divine lightning transformed into countless bolts of lightning that shot down from the sky. Moreover, the space in the surroundings actually started to gradually become illusory. Wang Jitze's expression became extremely unsightly when he noticed this. That sword is harming the quintessence of the world. The quintessence. Every single world had its own quintessence. If that quintessence was lost, then everything in that world would wither away, and humans wouldn't be able to cultivate. The reason many stellar regions had vanished was because their quintessence had vanished. However, the higher the level of a world, the stronger its quintessence was. Thus, no one dared to destroy it, nor was it impossible to destroy it. Just like this chaotic universe. If one wanted to destroy its quintessence, then only experts at the level of the Star-Lord and the others could accomplish it. Even though they could accomplish it, they didn't dare to. Because divine punishment would definitely descend. No one wanted to go head-on against the Tendo of this world. The Tendo had allowed the people of the world to cultivate and made it convenient for the people of the world, but the people of the world couldn't open the door to the heavens and take a yard after taking an inch. However, at this moment, the sword in Yi Xian's hand was actually publicly harming the quintessence of this world. Moreover, it had even destroyed divine punishment. What sort of sword is that? Yi Xian didn't know what it was. All he knew was that there seemed to be nothing that he couldn't destroy once he held it in his hand. He could even annihilate the heavens with a single swing of his sword. This was the feeling. Yi Xian did not want to destroy the world. He only wanted to destroy the people in front of him. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian looked at Wang Jitze and the others with the sword in his hand. In the next moment, he gripped the sword tightly with both hands. All around him, the power of the earth and the veins of the earth frantically gathered towards him. Not only that, but the bloodline power in his body was also growing at a crazy rate. Seeing this, Wang Jitze's expression became extremely grave. Retreat. Retreat. His intuition told him not to take Yi Xian's sword head-on. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian, who was on the opposite side, suddenly dashed forward and slashed down with his sword. Slash! His voice was like thunder, resounding through the clouds and shaking the world. As Yi Xian slashed down with his sword, a ray of blood-red sword energy that could obliterate the heavens and the earth flashed through the battlefield, and the expressions of all the experts of the Order Alliance who stood before Yi Xian instantly changed drastically. It was truly capable of obliterating the heavens and the earth. This sword strike gave everyone the feeling that it could cut the heavens, split the earth, and destroy everything. Wang Jitsa suddenly roared furiously. Retreat! As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and brought his hands together. A powerful force condensed at the center of his palms, and then he blasted his hands forward. Bang! Bang! Two powerful forces surged out from Wang Jitsa's hands. However, they seemed so weak before Yi Xian's sword energy. The sword arrived. Wang Jitsa's two forces were practically obliterated in an instant. In an instant, Wang Jitsa was blasted flying, and his body started to crack inch by inch as he retreated. It wasn't just Wang Jitsa, all the experts of the Order Alliance who were too slow were obliterated as well. At this moment, the entire divine martial city started to collapse inch by inch, and the ground and the surroundings was collapsing layer by layer. The might of a single attack was enough to obliterate the heavens and earth. The remnant might of the attack lasted for nearly 15 minutes before it calmed down. At this moment, the entire divine martial city was in a mess. The experts of the Order Alliance in front of Yi Xian had already retreated outside the city, and only two of them were left. They were the two experts above the Dao Proving Realm. The rest of the people below them had all disappeared. Even Wang Jitsa was left with only his soul. Not only that, but his soul had already turned completely illusory, and there was nothing he could do to save the situation. In the dark, Tang Yi and the others from the Tang clan had extremely solemn expressions. With a single attack, nearly 30 Dao Validation Realm experts were killed. Not only that, but Wang Jitsa, who was their leader, was also about to disappear completely. Tang Feng and the others couldn't believe what they were seeing. Was this done by a 20-year-old youth? Below, after Yi Xian swung his sword, he held it with both hands and supported himself on the ground. His head was lowered, and blood flowed continuously from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, the red glow on his body had slowly faded away. However, the earth energy was still in his body, including the dragon's soul and dragon energy. At this moment, Yiling grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said in a trembling voice, "Brother?" Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and grinned, "I'm fine. Don't be afraid, brother can still fight." Hearing this, Yi Ling's tears flowed down. Yi Xian said softly, "Don't cry. As long as brother is here, the sky won't collapse. Even if it does, brother will carry it for you." Yi Ling hugged Yi Xian's arm tightly. He didn't say anything, but tears flowed down his face. Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the distance. Wang Jitsa, who was about to disappear, was also looking at him. Wang Jitsa's eyes were somewhat dazed. "I never thought that I, Wang Jitsa, would actually die in the hands of a youth who's not even 20 years old." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked into the depths of the void. "This kid can't be left alive." As soon as he finished speaking, his soul completely disappeared. His soul was destroyed. This kid can't be left alive. After a moment of silence, a shapeless pressure suddenly appeared in the sky above Martial God City. As soon as this pressure appeared, the expressions of everyone from the Wuyuan and Sword sect changed. Even the extraordinary Sword Saint, Yu Wuchen, had an extremely solemn expression on his face. In the dark, Tang Yi looked into the sky and said softly, "Has the Star Master made a move?" A huge hand suddenly appeared in the sky above Martial God City, and then the city below started to tremble violently. The might of this palm strike was several times stronger than the sword strike that Yi Xian had executed earlier. Below, within Martial God City, no matter if it was the disciples of the Wuyuan or the Sword sect, all of their faces turned pale. "We can't stop it." This was what everyone's intuition told them. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the huge hand. There was no fear in his eyes, and he just held onto Yi Ling's hand tightly while the sword in his right hand trembled lightly. Helplessness? At this moment, Yi Xian didn't feel helplessness in his heart. He only knew that he had tried his best. As long as he had tried his best, it was enough. Just as the huge hand was about to fall, Yu Wuchen suddenly looked at Yi Xian. "I'll leave the sword sect to you." As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot and soared into the sky with the sword in hand. Under everyone's gaze, the sword ray directly slashed at the huge hand. Rumble. The huge hand suddenly collapsed, and Yu Wuchen rushed into the sky with the sword in hand. 15 minutes later, a figure slowly fell from the sky. At this moment, only half of the sword in Yu Wuchen's hand was left. Sect leader. Below, countless sword sect disciples were so furious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Yi Xian looked at the slowly falling Yu Wuchen, and the sword in his hand trembled violently. At this moment, Yu Wuchen steadily landed in front of Yi Xian, and at this moment, Yu Wuchen didn't have the slightest breath. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he looked up into the sky. At this moment, a man appeared. Star Lord. The person in front of him was the Order Alliance's Star Lord. Yi Xian's expression turned ferocious, and he roared, "Tang Clan, if you help me restrain this person today, I will definitely kill all the Order Alliance's Dao Realm experts. There is only one chance, and your Tang Clan doesn't want it." In the sky, the Star Lord looked at Yi Xian with a calm expression. At this moment, a voice suddenly resounded in the sky. "Really?" Yi Xian roared, "Really?" As soon as Yi Xian's voice fell, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the Star Lord. This person was Tang Yen. Tang Yen glanced at Yi Xian below. "What do you want to do?" "Do it." Yi Xian waved his right hand, and directly stored Yi Ling into the prison pagoda. The next moment, he turned into a sword ray and shot into the sky. His target, Sky City. In the dark, Tang Yi said softly, "Is he going to attack the Order Alliance? Could it be that he's crazy?" Tang Qing's expression was calm, and no one knew what he was thinking. In the sky above the Divine Martial City, the Star Lord looked at Tang Yen. "Is he going to start a war with the Order Alliance?" Tang Yen said softly, "This world is like this. If you don't destroy me, I will destroy you. If you have the same chance, you will also weaken my Tang Clan, and even destroy my Tang Clan, isn't that right?" The Star Lord looked to the right. There is still the Demon Clan. Tang Yen looked straight at the Star Lord. "Compared to the Demon Clan, I am more afraid of humans. At least, even if the Demon Clan wants to start a war, they will only do it openly, and not play dirty tricks in the dark." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. "Star Lord, if it wasn't for my Tang Clan having clan head Mu, I am afraid my Tang Clan would have been eaten by the Order Alliance, right?" The Tang Clan was like the sword sects Wu Yuan. They also had times when they were weak, and at that time, the Tang Clan was almost swallowed by the Order Alliance. At that time, Mu Nanji suddenly rose up and saved the Tang Clan. It was also at that time that the Tang Clan understood that in this world, if one clan wasn't the strongest, there would be endless battles. Therefore, all these years, the Tang Clan and the Order Alliance could be said to have restrained each other. Now that the Order Alliance had suffered heavy losses, the Tang Clan would not let go of this opportunity. Because if the Order Alliance was given this opportunity, they would do the same, or even more ruthless. Opposite Tang Yen, the Star Lord was expressionless. This time, he knew that he had underestimated Yi Xian. And this underestimation directly made the Order Alliance pay a painful price. After a moment of silence, the Star Lord turned to look at the direction of Ascending Sky City and said softly, "Ascending Sky City has never been invaded by enemies since it was built. Clan Head Tang, you have to watch carefully and see if the person you think highly of can kill all the Dao Realm experts of the Order Alliance." Tang Yen smiled, "I will watch." As he spoke, he looked into the distance. At the end, a sword light flew through the clouds, heading straight for Ascending Sky City. P.S. I haven't been praised for a long time. Can anyone praise me? You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.